This episode of An Unexpected Podcast is brought to you by brother and sister Andrew and Robbie Martin. Thank you. That's hot. That is actually hot. that hit the old gums, and that is hot. But dude, I'm loving this Dr. Bean coffee that you've turned me on to.
Please don't use the terms "turned me on" and "me" in the same sentence. It makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, all the same, it's delicious, nutritious, and stimulatious.
I do believe you just made that up.
Hey, all good cups deserve an embellishment or two.
Why are you doing that?
Doing what?
You're talking like Gandalf again.
Well, I mean, yeah, you know, I don't know. It's this morning buzz blend, bright acidity, medium body, caramel, lemon, lime, apple green, milk chocolate. I feel like the bright morning of anticipation on an adventure.
Probably makes you want to say, good morning. That's fitting. I mean, that's really fitting.
Not really. We can't go anywhere.
Think again, Buzzy Boy. Dr. Bean Coffee Company is going on a contest.
You lost me.
Well, you know, while I wander, you are not lost. Dr. Bean Coffee Company is doing a hashtag Dr. Bean travel contest. All you have to do is stay tuned because the details are coming soon, but we're going to have those to you very quickly.
Wow, I'm on it. And what are you waiting for? You should be too. Get on over to drbeancoffeecompany.com, get yourself some delicious brew, and take your cup to go with the hashtag Dr. Bean Travel Contest. I know exactly where I'm taking mine.
Where?
I'm taking this adventurous cup out to the Pacific Northwest to see...
Hello there.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Unexpected Podcast. I'm Ez.
And I'm Lane.
And we're talking Tolkien.
We're coming to you from the Shire of America, the beautiful state of Ohio, in a little village called Amanda.
Ooh, you back to the singing.
Yeah, you know what?
Now.
I hear the noise, and I'm just giving them some more. Okay? Okay.
All right. This week we're going far over and far under as we plunge into Chapter 4 and try to avoid the king of all goblins.
We also have a very special guest joining us this episode. We've got Matt Brady, the one, the only, the legendary, the epic man of many talents, the NFL savant, the purveyor of all things beautiful. Matt, you've become pretty legendary for opening podcast episodes with some of the most epic / semi-rhetorical questions known to man. So I wanted to take a crack at it myself, if you'll both indulge me. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Matt, is that all right with you?
I just thought I'd crack.
Oh, there's lots of cracks in this episode.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, have you ever seen orc cleavage? And be honest, how was it?
This is pretty great. Not gonna lie. I'll just say it right there.
Was it unforgettable?
I don't discriminate. Okay, I'll just I have a joke. I want to say it, but I don't know if it's gonna be appropriate or not.
Go ahead. We have the power of post-production.
I'm just saying. Look, hey, I saw some orc cleavage one, and I'll tell you, something was up. Okay, is all.
Oh my God!
I don't know that I was talking Tolkien, but something was definitely up. I'll say that.
I should. What have I done? What have I done? This is great.
Further up. Woo!
I was not prepared for that one. I was not prepared for that one.
Oh my God! It's too much. It's just too much. That is unreal.
Wow.
All right. Well, this is interesting.
I'm already sweating. I'm already sweating.
Well, Matt's got me sweating. You know what I mean? I'm like,
it's not often that you and I are both sweating in an episode.
Down another
it's either you or me, and it's almost never me.
Mm-hmm.
I know. So here we go. We're in a wet spot. Let's do some quick counsel, gentlemen. How are we, Matt? How is it in the United States of Portland out there? Are you still an American citizen, or like what's going on, man? How are you?
Well, let me tell you. Lane, I think one of the we were checking in with each other but like 2 weeks ago or so, and
You were in Mordor for a second, man.
I was in Mordor, man. I was sending you pictures, and those wildfires were going on, and I was like, it is just orange outside, right? Sometimes you're like, wow,
bad.
it's pitch dark, or it's it's pitch orange.
Yeah, and it wasn't your sunglasses.
Was,
it wasn't just because you had your shades on either.
It was not the shades, man. It was just the way it was. I sent you some pictures, and you guys were like, that just looks like fog. I'm like, it's not fog, man. It's
fog.
It's smoke. I can't even see. We have a lonely mountain here, Mount Hood.
Yes,
and I can normally see it.
Yes,
I didn't know what was going on. I was like, man, I can't even see my lonely mountain. So.
That's wild. That's wild.
It sounds like what you said after you saw the cleavage as well.
But
geez. Wow, dude. Well, I'm glad you're safe. That everything is okay out there now. It sounds like some rain came through and kind of settled things down in the Pacific Northwest. What's going on? Like, how are you, dude? Like, are you hanging out in hyperspace? I mean, can you explain how you can even really do that? Okay, I've heard it's impossible.
Yeah, I hang out.
And I don't believe it, Matt. I don't believe it.
I hang out in hyperspace. I guess for those of you guys, I can introduce myself a little bit here. Those of you guys who may not know who I am, I am Ez Lane and I. We all went to high school together. We and Ez and I run about 18 podcasts.
Wow!
At this point,
stop confirming rumors.
Yeah. As it goes on here, we run a Game of Thrones one, a Star Wars one, a comedy one. I mean, it just goes on and on. So I think I jokingly say that we're kind of like the unofficial podcast network. Not that any of us would ever join a podcast network.
Right.
Because we get tons. You know what I mean?
We don't need to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We don't need to. So yeah, I mean, everything's good, man. I just over here in the Pacific Northwest, I'm ready to talk some Hobbit. I love it.
Good.
There's things I'll say about it. Ez and I normally talk. We do Wheel of Time, we do Game of Thrones, and those are a lot. They're thicker, they're heavier, they're denser. And this, man, it's just a good.
It's refreshing.
Time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. It's light. The Hobbit, I think, is actually, it's one of the first fantasy books I ever read. I remember reading it. I think it was in 6th grade. I'm thankful you guys brought me on for this chapter.
Of course,
because
man.
this is the chapter I think of when I think of the Hobbit. I
think we actually gave you first pick too. I think when we were planning the Hobbit, we were like, because we had talked about doing something together for all three of us for a while, and I think we said, Matt, what episode, what chapter you want, man? Let us know. And you wanted to come on for the Foehammer, the Orc Cleaver. This is I'm excited to hear how this chapter was one, or is one that's very memorable to you, and one that you gravitated towards. So we're glad. I mean, we're honored you're here, brother. It's cool. I've really been looking forward to this. Just being able to sit down and talk Hobbit. Maybe talk some video games in between.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Can I just say, I for folks, if anyone was listening, thank you to everyone who was listening on Discord and in our Zoom chat earlier. But we almost didn't get to this episode because the history of NFL football took over for about 2 hours before we got here.
Dude,
I didn't think you guys were going to get that all out of your system.
I was lost in the sea of this NFL savant that is just, I felt like someone needed to throw me a life raft because I was drowning in statistics. I was like,
it's nuts.
Oh my gosh. It's crazy talking to Matt about football in the same way that, so I don't know football. Like, I'm a football fan. I know, I have gut reactions to stuff. Like, I like that guy. I don't like that guy. I like that team. I don't like that team. It's not based on anything. It's based on Lane Smith. Okay. But it's so cool talking to Matt about his statistical knowledge in the same way that when I talk to Ez about the playmaking of football, the strategy of football, I will sit down and just listen to him talk, and they're doing a I don't even know. They're disguising a coverage here, and I'm like, what are you even? How do you see it? Well, they're gonna pop back and cover the long pass, and they've got a nickel dime quarter set up here, and I'm just like, okay, bro, whatever. It looks like dudes on a field chasing each other, but that's
Lane knows more than that. Don't even.
I truly don't. So I'm blown away when people. I love seeing and hearing people that when they're passionate about things. I think it's the most exciting thing in the world. I love just sitting down and trying to play in a conversation, but mostly just listening to people express what they love. And so at one point, Matt whipped out this master schedule of rankings of quarterbacks, and let's just say it goes through. It's comprehensive. Can we just say it's comprehensive?
It's insane.
It dates back to the 1950s, 1940s. Yeah.
I mean, it's mind blowing.
And it's
thought it was
something
just
that
the
I
one
designed
sheet.
myself too. It is also something that I designed myself. I was like, it's not like this is like, it's like I came up with this algorithm. I'm just that big of a nerd.
Yeah, it's insane.
He's the perfect mixture of the Moneyball nerds and the John Dorseys of the world, and it was just like I thought it was just one sheet, and then he starts scrolling, it's going into the hundreds.
He has running
of
backs. You know what I mean?
Yes,
he's got other positions.
Yes.
Great.
So and I was pleased to see some Cleveland Browns ranking pretty high up there. I did wear this for Matt today. If you're watching on Patreon, you'll see that I've got the beautiful colors orange and brown on, and it's kind of interesting because Matt sort of does too. I mean, those are not, dissimilar to Browns colors.
He's an Ohio
Maybe
guy.
he's admitted something. I don't know. His favorite team is the Cleveland Browns. He's a diehard Browns fan.
Wow,
he believes he's a fan of Believe Land.
Oh shoot!
The funny thing is, as was saying here, he's like, I don't know if we're ever going to get to this. So let me just say a couple of things here.
You're ready.
So Ez is. I find it great because Ez is in the middle of Lane and I, really.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Because it's like Lane and Ez podcast, Ez and I podcast. And so it's always like, Ez is always telling me about, Lane and I did this or did this. So I'm always hearing about so I feel like I know really what's going on in Lane's life all the time. Yeah. And I'm sure it's vice versa.
It is vice versa. Yes.
And so Lane and I, although literally we just started a group chat, like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And so since then, now Lane, Ez and I are always talking, but it's really just Lane and I talking.
Oh, I totally. That group chat.
It's great because I say this all the time too, is I think one of the things that's so great about Ez is that I think Lane and I are very similar people, and that we're really like these bigger creative types. And I'm really good at just big kind of ideas, but I'm not necessarily so good at okay, how do I break this down and make it something that works? And Ez is fantastic at that. He's really good at organizing all this stuff. And so sometimes Ez and I have talked, and I said, if you, Lane, and I were to ever do something, I just feel so bad for you because it's like Lane and I would just be going a million miles an hour, and you'd be over here trying to contain cats. And that's what our group text is. Because it's like Lane and I are just going, and I'm sure Ez is on his phone and he's just like, oh my God. And he gets one word in, but
dude, he would end up leaving us and creating the podcast of solitude. That's what he would do. I'm just going to go to my fortress. I'm talking Superman by myself. I'm leaving these guys to their own ramblings. I'm done.
Right.
That's what he was.
But so it's great. And Lane and I have been talking a lot of football, and it's really great because the three of us are AFC North guys. I am actually a Steelers fan. Lane is a Browns fan. Ez is a Bengals fan. And even though we disagree several times a year, there's one thing we can all agree on.
Yes.
We all hate the Ravens.
Oh, 100%.
We all hate the Ravens. So it works out, man. It works out.
Yeah.
And Art Modell has a special place in something that rhymes with Modell.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is just great. It's wonderful having Matt on. I love getting to know Matt more and more. He's a wonderful human being. He's very passionate. He asks some of the best questions. I love listening. I don't get to listen all the way through every episode, although I am getting better. Although now I've got a new phone, so I probably won't be listening to any podcast.
Yeah. You're done.
I'll have way more time on my hands. But Matt, I mean that sincerely. The questions you open every episode, and I know that Ezra's never heard them because I know that reaction. And I've asked Ez too. I'm like, those questions that Matt comes up with, they are.
I'm blind. I'm totally blind.
They're fantastic, man. They blow the conversation wide open. It's a great hook at the beginning of every episode. So it's just fantastic. So it's wonderful having you on, brother. I do want to drop a little. Oh, I guess how are you doing, man? I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm honestly. So,
Jeez.
guys. This is the theme. This is the theme of this episode.
We could never forget you, bro. You're our
This is
leader.
What's hilarious. I said this, and I'm gonna have to be. It's like Gandalf is gonna have to speak a freaking word of command in this episode to get a word in, because like these two guys. What's great about it is. I listen to them talk, and then I'm always trying to just add on to what they're saying and stuff like that. But I told Lane beforehand, I was like, I'm not going to get a word in. And if we start to talk about anything that you two are passionate about, it's done. I was like, I will just, which is crazy. Well, we kind of said, we're like, all right, our episodes are long on Up Talking Tolkien, and I'm like, the three of us together, this is going to be a two-parter.
Yeah.
This is probably going to be like 3 hours.
Even if we wrap up in 45.
It might be a 3 to 4 hour.
It might be a trilogy. And even if we only make it 45 minutes, I think you should cut it right now.
Watch
and just
it
make 2 episodes.
It's the shortest episode we've ever done.
we like hit a wall. We're all exhausted. Well,
that's it.
I don't know. The end.
Oh, God.
No, but this is great. So I do want to drop some eaves. Okay, so I just want to get Matt's I think desires for the show, reactions to any news he's heard. I want to know what he knows about Loader on Prime. What we've done is this is great. Like we're getting to the point where Ez and I are starting to dig into the Second Age. We're starting to take a close look at especially the Instagram accounts of the actors and actresses who have been confirmed to be cast in Loader on Prime. We're also looking at J.A. Bayona, the director of the first 2 episodes. We believe even more. We think he's been given like maybe even 2 more episodes based on his Instagram stories talking about only being halfway through his experience when they finished the first 2 episodes before they took their hiatus. So he's come back. He's clearly filming more. I think he's doing all of it. He's clearly impressed everyone who's writing, the showrunners, Payne and McKay. So we're finally getting to we're in the right spot to start speculating on, okay, these actors, who are they going to play? What will episode 1 look like? What we're even going to get into, like what major themes and arcs are we going to see in the first season? Maybe even multiple seasons over an expansive time. Who are we going to follow? How's the show going to look? But it's kind of getting to the point where we want to drop that all over on YouTube. So we're doing that. We're doing YouTube videos that is dropping eaves specific. So, but Matt, you're involved in a similar fandom, Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time is also an Amazon show. So you've been following that show as well. You followed Game of Thrones. You're used to this stuff. You're following Mandalorian, Star Wars universe. How much do you know about Loader on Prime? What are you wanting from a Lord of the Rings show? Like, just talk us through it. What are you looking forward to? I guess.
Well, let me start with just in terms of streaming right now, because one of the things I also do in my regular day job is at this point now I'm just pretty much day trading at work, and I do. I'm Lane. I'm a big investor. So I'm constantly listening.
Got that McDonald's stock, baby. McDonald's and Starbucks and AT&T. Hey, I helped you out today because I switched to AT&T, so I expect a little kickback. All right,
you did.
Even if it's a shout out, you better dedicate an episode of Box Trick to me.
Hey, I'm down. I'll share with you my.
I will.
If you think my football spreadsheet is insane, let me just share with you my investing spreadsheet.
But Lord.
No, okay. So let me just say real quick. So one of the things that's going on right now is due to COVID. For people who don't really know this, AMC movie theaters are probably going to go bankrupt in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because
that's what we have in Lancaster. That's our local movie theaters, AMC.
So movie theaters, because nobody can go to the movies. Yeah. Nobody can go to the movie theater. People, even if you were able to, a lot of people just don't want to go. And also there is a big issue right now in that there are no movies filmed. So that is certainly a struggle that's going on. Movies are way bigger productions, and so actually right now you're seeing Disney, Netflix, Amazon, AT&T, which ultimately owns like HBO and stuff like that. They are all like investing heavily more in streaming. One of the shows, as I talked about in Hyperspace, obviously Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. There's rumors right now that they're actually about to film seasons 3 and 4 back to back, just because of the restrictions everywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have that going on. Disney just closed down. Disneyland is like in California is shut down, and they've said we're really not going to be investing in movies because they're so far out. So they're going to be going heavy, much more in streaming. So streaming is the next big thing. It's like it, and
as if it wasn't already. I mean, it's just,
if it wasn't already. It's
right.
It's definitely the future.
Yeah, it is.
And Amazon. One of the reasons I actually feel really good about both Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings is Amazon. I mean, Jeff Bezos is going nuts. I mean, the guy is literally just trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
There's rumors right now he's about to buy CNN because as he's expanding his sort of media empire, right? So with Wheel of Time, one of the things, as and I know, in looking at interviews with directors and cast and stuff like that, and Wheel of Time's a little bit further along than it's about a year ahead of Lord of the Rings,
right?
Is that these directors are saying things in these interviews like, this is the biggest budget for television, right, that I've ever had. They're saying we are doing massive battles, things like that. I mean, Jeff Bezos is the guy is like, I mean, he's trying to take over the world. And so, it's Wheel of Time is going to be huge, and it of the fantasy things, right? I think I would say that, I mean, it obviously has a big following in fantasy, but in terms of people that don't read fantasy, it's unknown right now. Like a year from now, everyone will know what it is.
It'll be a huge surprise for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, just like nobody, people who didn't read fantasy had no idea what
Lord
Game of Thrones was.
Lord of the Rings too. I mean, that's how I discovered Lord of the Rings was the films.
See, I think Lord of the Rings is different because I think Lord of the Rings is so big that people
when the films came out, there was a whole generation that didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think knew Lord of the Rings.
I
mean, unless you read the books.
Right. See, I read The Hobbit,
right.
But I think The Hobbit is a book where you read it in middle school like I did, and stuff like that. And it's certainly something I had heard of because it just is. I mean, to me, it's the king of fantasy books. And so I think if Wheel of Time is going to be this big, right? In 2022, which is probably when the show's coming out, maybe late 2021, who knows? It's going to be going up against Game of Thrones prequel, which is coming, House of the Dragon, and they're going to want it to be a very big competitor. You look at Amazon Prime and how it's growing, right? It now has bigger shows in The Boys, like that's kind of a hit for it. You have
Carl Urban,
Maisel, which is big. You have Jack Ryan, stuff like that, and you have Wheel of Time coming. But I think Wheel of Time is going to be amazing, but Wheel of Time could flop just because people don't know it as well. The Lord of the Rings show cannot flop because people know what it is, and they're going to go into it having expectations, where you have the Lord of the Rings movies, which were all mega hits. I mean, obviously the original Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, the Lord of the Rings, was like, I mean, it won records for Academy Awards.
Go ahead and say it.
And so,
Return of the King, Titanic, and
exactly, yeah, exactly. And so,
greatest trilogy of all time.
Yeah. It is.
I think even as a huge Star Wars fan, with that obviously being a very close second, I think that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the best, mostly because of the extended version, which I just call the original version, and I forget that the unextended exist. So,
whoa. Don't tell us that. Don't tell us that.
Yeah, I remember. So let me tell you something about real quick story. Then I'll get back to it. I remember I gave Ez the extended version, and he had never seen it, and he was like, "I never even seen like half these scenes."
He is outing you, bro. He's outing you,
dude. It was just the first time. It was the first time he But anyway, so
and this was last week, right? This was last week.
This was
2 weeks ago.
No, but I'm the Amazon show. I think it's going to be if Wheel of Time is any indicator. I think Lord of the Rings could have an even bigger budget. I think and again,
it's $1 billion. I mean, with the rights and the budget that Jeff Bezos shelled out $1 billion.
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's insane. It set records for that kind of payout for the rights and nuts. Production of a show ever. And he's a huge Lord of the Rings fan too. He loves Middle Earth.
Well, and at the end of the day, remember, Amazon started, Amazon didn't start by shipping phones or whatever you want. Amazon was a book company. That's where it started. So obviously his passion at somewhere.
Shoot, I
is
forgot
books.
that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's where it started. He was
Yeah.
he was just shipping books out of his garage, and then it,
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
I mean,
Right.
That's
And
crazy.
so, yeah.
right. And so, I mean, he's beginning this sort of media. That's his next phase of Amazon is building this sort of media part of it as well. And I think both Wheel of Time and Lord of the Rings are going to be huge. And I think Lord of the Rings is set up perfect actually for coming after Wheel of Time, because then it gives Wheel of Time its own chance to kind of
Yeah, they're not
establish
competing
its-
against each other. Yeah.
And
That would
if Lord of the Rings comes first, then it's like, that's just another show. But if Wheel of Time comes out
that's a good
in
point.
its own right,
Yeah.
and then it's like, wow, this show's great. Oh wait,
Yes.
they're doing Lord of the Rings too.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And then
Right.
You definitely want them to complement each other, especially since Robert Jordan was influenced by Tolkien himself.
Yes,
you don't want those
very
two
much
shows
so.
competing against each other. You don't want to split your audience. And I don't know that you necessarily would, but you're right. Wheel of Time needs a time to shine, and in the same respect, we're going back into Lord of the Rings after, you can include The Hobbit. We're going back into Middle Earth after a while of having been in train. Like The Hobbit was very divisive. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people didn't like it. But Lord of the Rings, the films are pretty, like, fans are pretty unified on that being like, it's unquestioned. It's unquestioned. Even the times they strayed from the books themselves, like, they're forgivable for whatever reason. I don't know, because the spirit was captured so well.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping for in the Lord of the Rings on Prime? Do you have like a specific want? Is there a character you want to see? Are you just excited that there's going to be a show at all, or are you excited to see it in show form versus film form, or?
Yeah. Well, one last. I just want to make one last point about about kind of Amazon and this is and one of the other things I guess I'm looking forward to, and another reason why I think it's just going to be huge, is right now people buy Amazon Prime for free shipping. That's the reason people buy it. That's the reason people have Prime. Once you really start adding in, I mean, they've improved their shows along the way, but once you have a show like Wheel of Time and this, now it's like people are going to start getting Prime for content, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that is something else that this has the chance to do, to be that mega of a show. But in terms of what I want to see of it, in all honesty, I think I'm kind of glad that they're not redoing anything, which I think is great. And so it's going to be original characters. It's going to be set way before. I mean, there will maybe be some characters, that we see the forging. Are we going to see the Forging of the Rings? Are we going to see, some of these, some of these things rise up? Gondor, all this stuff. What's it look like back then, and stuff like that. And maybe we start to see, like the some of the descent between the elves and the dwarves, and maybe they were living together. We don't know what liberties. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know what liberties they're going to take with it. Are they kind of doing their own thing? And I think it's actually good that we have the same thing going on in our Game of Thrones prequel that's coming up, in that they're going back to a time in that series in which you have an outline.
It's just outline.
There's a rough outline, but you can pretty much do whatever you want with it. And so I think that's great for Lord of the Rings, because so many people's, issue with the movies as well. They don't show some of the stuff that happens at the end, or, they cut so much stuff out. Tom Bombadil's not in it. And so now you're picking a time where you kind of have liberties to do with whatever you want, and create an original story. And I think that's great. And I think that is a perfect place to put it.
It is a great combination. The Second Age is a great combination of very, you call them like pillars, events that did happen, definite like things that you can't move, but then all this in between. We've talked about this, and that's one of the reasons Tom Shippey was brought on, was to make sure that no major like canon events were messed with, and that anything that went on in between that was filler, that Tolkien never wrote or Christopher never illuminated, that that only builds towards those big moments. So we're excited for that too. Honestly, I'm excited because I don't know much of what happens in the Second Age, and it's going to be in the same way that the Lord of the Ring, Fellowship of the Ring, got me into Lord of the Rings in general. This is causing me and Ez to dive into the Second Age, to start exploring characters, to think about what happened, what was going on with Elrond and Galadriel at this time. How was Anatar able to deceive so many, elves and Numenorians, and the culture of Numenor, and how that was so it's gonna be awesome. But I am also, like you said, Amazon is incredible, and they're building quite a CV of like shows. I mean, The Boys is like taking over, and you gotta love The Boys because you got Carl Urban at the forefront, our very own Éomer, and that's exciting to see. He's a great actor who deserves success, and it is really, really impressive. And I had maybe heard that once and forgotten that's how Bezos started. So that is incredible to think of this. Yeah, I don't know, and that it can culminate in these crazy shows, like that's awesome. It's kind of coming full circle in a way for him, and he's helping tell stories in a different medium. So, and I can't wait to see it in a show for him. So it's going to be fantastic, man. Lots of stuff going on. Go check out their Instagrams, especially J.A. Bayona. He is posting all the time. Ismael Cordova also his story is full almost every day. Every time he posts a picture, it's location. What is it? Location unconfirmed or something like that. And so it's like, we know you're in New Zealand, bro. Like, quit teasing. So great stuff going on there. In other corners of Middle Earth, real quick before we get into the chapter, the meat and potatoes. I personally want to give a huge shout out. Okay, I was able to plug a few of your boys' podcasts today. I went and switched over to AT&T again, so I expect a shout out, Matt. I need to, I'm helping your portfolio.
Although, well, if you're on Verizon, that's fine too. So,
well, no, but see, here's what I want: an episode of Box Trick dedicated to Lane Smith and his AT&T.
we can make it happen.
I would love that. Anyway,
that AT&T dividend comes next Tuesday. So,
a huge shout out to Drew and Morgan and Nick at AT&T in Lancaster, Ohio. If you're in the area, go see them. They're incredible. They hooked me and Sarah up today, and the reason I wanted to talk about them, they were fantastic. They were wonderfully kind. Thanked us for our patience, even though we were thanking them for helping get set up. That always takes longer than you're always in there 3 hours. You think it's going to take a half hour. Yeah. It takes 3 hours because you got to verify that you're really yourself, which is nuts. But Drew had on a mask with the Millennium Falcon and a few different Star Wars ships. And I said, dude, I said, are you a Star Wars fan? Obviously, duh, dad question. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, what do you think of The Mandalorian? Oh, I love it, man. Have you seen the episode today? No, I haven't gotten to it yet. I said, my good friend Ezra and his friend Matt, they run a Star Wars podcast. I said, if you're into that kind of thing, you should check it out. I said, absolutely, write the name down. So I ended up writing down Hyperspace Hangout, and I told them all that I was going to give them a shout out today. So good people, man. Good people deserve shout outs, especially if you're in customer relations right now, if you're dealing with people. Some people are very impatient, they're very impatient, they're very disgruntled right now, they're very frustrated, and they take that out on each other, unfortunately. So when you find people who are treated like that, and they shouldn't be, and they're just trying to provide a service, and they're nice, kind people, it's important to lift them up. So huge shout out to them. I want to thank them for their kindness. Go follow Isaac, the Lord of Maps, Lord_of Maps. He's working his way through the 50 states, making maps in the style of Tolkien. They're incredible. Hand-drawn. I believe his wife is even creating with him as well. They're doing, they've got the British Isles. They've done the United States as a whole. And they've added Amanda to the map of Ohio. And so huge. And actually our friend Dave Fogel got his in, sent me a picture. It looks beautiful. I'm still waiting on mine, but I cannot wait. To see it.
Must be nice, Dave.
Yeah, Dave. Like, what's you got the inside, Dave? Bro? Like, what's going on here?
Exactly,
it's the voice. It's that voice. Yeah. Matt, would you like to either brush over or talk in depth about Lord of the Rings games?
Yeah, let's.
How much would you like to talk? Do you have a top 5? Do you just want to talk about your favorite in general? Because this is kind of your area of expertise, along with NFL spreadsheets, is video games.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, well, we were talking about it, and as and I have talked about it too. The Lord of the Rings, really, it's this. it's unfortunate, I guess I could say, in terms of other franchises. I think for some reason, and I don't know why, but this franchise should have just way better video games. Not that they've had bad, but just they've had I just don't understand how this franchise hasn't had just like mega hit after mega hit after mega hit of video games. I mean,
do you blame EA? Do you hold EA accountable?
You can hold EA accountable for a lot of things. I mean, actually, you go back to like the GameCube, Return of the Two Towers, Return of the King. I mean, those were good.
Games. Love those games.
And in all honesty, I mean, the Lego Lord of the Rings might literally be the best. Lord of the Rings game. You have the Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor games, but it's just like you think of a franchise that, I mean, you could argue is certainly as big, as notable as, I mean, it's not, it may not be as big in terms of history, in terms of film and stuff like that, as like Star Wars. But I mean, if a new Lord of the Rings movie were to come out, I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal. I mean, it's right there with Harry Potter, all of those like mega things, mega franchises. And yeah, I think it's just, kind of interesting really that the Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth just hasn't had so many more kind of bigger games in its history. I've just always.
I thought you were going to say you liked them. I thought you were going to say you liked them because wow, you're making me feel making me feel like a non-gamer, bro. Which I am. I'm a huge fanboy.
I mean, Shadow of Mordor is great. I mean, Shadow of Mordor is a great game.
It's too hard for me, Matt. It's good for you.
Ez played it.
I like it.
Played it.
Yeah.
It's too hard for me. I can't do it. I lose to those bosses every time, and then I just dig myself a hole. I got that hyperspace shovel, just digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper. So I love. Okay, my favorites. All right, you want to hear my favorites? They're the ones that nobody liked. Just like a lot of things in life, I loved the Fellowship of the Ring game, which was based on the books. Absolutely loved that game. Not many people did.
What system did that come out for?
It's PS2. It was also PC. I think it was on GameCube as well.
Okay.
Huge, like it was based only on the books. I also love Two Towers. I love that. That was one of the first movie tie-ins that used like actors' voices, that used a score, like music from the films, that worked with, I think they worked really closely with New Line and with Peter Jackson in developing the game, even to the point where
there's
one of them
really cool. Yeah, there's really cool cutscenes in the game where it's back then they were doing this. Video games were doing this really weird thing
where they'd go from,
especially in that generation, because that's when you're in the PS2 generation. You're using DVDs, excuse me.
Yes.
And so they in those particular games they did this really cool thing where they're showing the scene from the movie.
Yes.
And then they like warp it into the game,
into the graphics. It was the first time I remember playing a video game that was based on a movie, and I felt like I was playing the movie. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things, like in hindsight, you go back and you're like, it's kind of cheesy. Like it's cheesy. It's dated a little bit. But man, in those, I have huge memories of playing with my playing those games with my cousin Luke, and just getting. I mean, I'd be like, "Can we play this level 5 times?" Like the breaking of the Fellowship, like you're on Hen. It was so cool, and so I loved those. Dude, I even liked the book spinoff of The Hobbit. But I would agree with you that not all those games have been hits, right? They've not all been like one game to rule them all, and I think they have definitely, like you said, with Shadow of Mordor, they've gotten closer. And I'm so interested to see, like with the show coming out, will they attempt a game tie-in? How will they do that? Will they get into ages we haven't seen yet? So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, one of the I do want to give a quick shout out to, and if you guys can pull something up here, it is pretty epic. Look up the collector's edition of Lord of the Rings: War in the North. It was a game for the Xbox 3. It was a game for the Xbox 360.
Yep.
PS3. It was actually a cool game. There's a lot of games in that time when they were making were really meant to be played co-op. There's a game called like Cursed Crusader. It has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, obviously, but a lot of these games were coming out at this time. The collector's edition, though, which I do have, is pretty sick. It has like a really actually cool map of Middle Earth that came with it. And it came with like a quiver, right, for your
that's
arrows.
Sweet. Was this the one where you like picked your race and you created your own character kind of thing, and you worked in a team? Or
yeah, okay. It was like there was a dwarf,
and
like a human and an elf, and you'd kind of go back and forth between them. Yeah, it was definitely pretty cool.
Awesome,
I would say that there's an online game which I think was kind of big, for a bit. But I mean, I would love to Lord of the Rings Online, and I would love to. I would just love to see. Like huge. I mean, you have all the Batman games, are huge, right? I mean, there's tons. It's sick.
I'm looking at the quiver right now. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. Wow. The collector's edition. Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty sweet. So yeah, I would just love to see a Lord of the Rings. I feel like that video game franchise should be way bigger. Well, there's no reason it couldn't be as big as like the Star Wars video game franchise.
Well, that's good. That's good. That means there's a lot of untapped potential there too. So that's stuff to look forward to. That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Very exciting. All right, brother. We are into the reread, Chapter 4, Overhill and Underhill.
Well, yeah. So is it cool if I
jump in here, man? I'm waiting to hear that voice. I'm waiting to hear you.
Like, guys, I never get to talk.
This is where I'm done talking. I don't talk the rest of the other.
Hey, there's literally like 20 negative reviews on our podcast that are all like, Matt never lets Ez speak. So.
No. Honestly, I'm more, and you guys know, I'm more of a listener, and I like to kind of just, really for me, I gotta tell both of you this. Yeah. Like, these are my brothers. Like, I'm sitting here with Matt and Lane, and I'm actually it's surreal to me because I'm sitting here going like, I love this. Like, I'm actually stoked because, it's just neat because like in high school we knew each other, but we didn't really hang out like together. We'd pass each other in the hallway and stuff, and then just to have like, I don't know, it's different. Like you and I, like Lane and I were into Lord of the Rings. We would talk about that together. We would talk about religion. We would talk about different things like that. And we're in different grades and stuff. So it's just, to me, I don't know, it's just so refreshing. It's so nice to be sitting here talking with my two buddies about something that's just totally nerdy. Yeah, it's this awesome fandom. I know for a fact that Matt goes on, every time he gets on a plane, the movie that he goes to is Fellowship. He watches Fellowship.
It's the best one,
Towers.
Isn't it? It's the best one.
Yeah, he watches. He can watch all. He watch the extended edition. And I'm just
every plane trip is Lord of the Rings.
That's beautiful, man. Yep. When you're flying on the Eagles, you're watching the Fellowship. That's beautiful.
And from Portland, Columbus is it's like 8 hours, so travel time.
Oh, that's perfect. Wow.
Yeah, so I make it through 1.5 movies.
Yeah, so it's just it's neat. I've always wanted to kind of, and one of my other buddies, it's just kind of interesting. I want to get
old Tom,
get Tom in because
get him out of the old forest, get him out here.
Tom used to show up at the cafeteria. Tom's hung out with Matt and I for years, and we've talked Lord of the Rings. So
I mean, he's a lore master.
Yeah, Tom.
From everything I've heard,
Tom reads more books than I do, and it's insane. He's nuts. But like, it's just neat to sit around with your buddies. I think one of the things when Matt and I talk about podcasting, Lane and I talk about podcasting, it's just us talking about a fandom that we love and that we enjoy, and just nerding out over the details on something or the theme and the connection. So I'm telling you guys, it's so much fun, and we hope. My big hope in all of this is always that, like, we got folks on Discord right now listening, just did the Zoom chat, that we develop more friendships and build community where people can just sit in and listen and talk about a fandom that kind of something we all can kind of like connect, and that we all have this shared interest in. So I don't know. For me, it's just you guys. Maybe it's also that I've had some I've been drinking a lot of water. So
the only kind that dehydrates you, right?
Yeah, it's a dehydrating water just for you adults out there. All right, well, so no, we are into chapter 4. And,
it's actually chapter 4. Yes. Oh my gosh, wow, I skipped ahead there.
Yeah, I was ahead.
Just going ahead. Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, weird.
2 minutes. Whoa. Oh, look out. All right, so Overhill and Underhill. And basically what I thought, is it's not really that long of a chapter, and it's a pretty straightforward chapter. There's some cool moments in here. Yeah. One of the things that I thought that I've always thought is interesting, when you go from the Lord of the Rings and you're talking about Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return, it's all orcs. It's all orcs, my friend.
A lot of orcs.
And now we've got goblins. What's the difference?
It's a great question. That's a great question.
I think there is, and definitely in the Hobbit adaptation, the film adaptation, they do show us a difference. I mean, they're definitely different.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
Sometimes it seems to be implied that they're very closely related, similar, all that kind of stuff. And I haven't done much research on
I haven't either. It almost feels like he used, I don't know, it almost feels like goblin as a word has a more like childlike implication going along with kind of the themes in the Hobbit, and it's like orc is a harsher, darker word almost, and it feels more fitting for Lord of the Rings. Because he almost does kind of, it seems like at times use them interchangeably. Yep. And I don't know the difference either. I don't know if that was intentional, if that was part of his development as a writer, or he was refining, or even different areas. Some areas have goblins, some areas are orcs. Maybe that's just what they're called in different areas as well. So yeah, that's one thing I haven't explored definitely about Tolkien.
Right. In my mind, I like that they are different. I like that they would be, slightly different in a different region, developed differently or whatever. And I think that's neat. And
because you have all these groups of people that go by different names that are very diverse. So to think that they're just all orcs or just all goblins, and that there's not different groups that are unique, it doesn't make any sense, does it? You know what I mean? They should be as varied and diverse as any group of, beings.
Well, and one thing I wanted, so we typically, we also kind of start with a recap sometimes. So Matt, I mean, as you've gotten into, because did you read the whole book, or did you just read through half of it? I've read
the whole, but I mean, I've read it before, seen the movies. It's been a while since I've seen the movies. And then just to get ready for this, I did plow through about the first 5 chapters. So just to refresh.
Nice. Yeah. And so we just got we just came out of a short rest. We were stopping in at the last homely house there. We were there with Elrond and eating lettuce and things.
Singing songs.
Silly songs
with elves.
What'd you think about that, Matt? I mean, did you not think that Elrond and the elves were a little bit different, almost a little bit fruitier than they are depicted in the Lord of the Rings films?
Yeah. It is so, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a cool experience, right? Going, just viewing them separately, right? Like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. I think, it's just easier to go. I think I always just think about it as going back to the Hobbit, not going from the Hobbit forward. I guess, does that make sense, right? So I guess when I think of this franchise, I think of Lord of the Rings first, even though I read the Hobbit originally. And so to me, the Lord of the Rings was like, oh, what is this? It's new. Oh, it happens afterwards, and stuff like that. But I think just because of the movies and everything, I'm just so much more used to how they're portrayed and how we view them, how we view them in the Lord of the Rings as opposed to how we view them in the Hobbit. And so it's just different because you're thinking about Elrond as right. In Lord of the Rings, he feels more stoic, distant,
regal, like a real
And here it's wow, we're hanging out with we're chilling, we're just hanging out. So it is. It's just a different. It is a different dynamic.
Yeah, and Lane and I have talked we think it's more of this was written first, and it was more for kids. It was meant to get a little silly, to be fun and lighthearted. And so later on, when something more serious is written, we kind of come back and say, all right, we got to take that up a notch, or maybe they were just being silly on that day.
True. That's true.
Or they're silly because it's dwarves and it's Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
But this kind of starts off right where we had that rest and we're moving on and we've gotten some good advice. And as we move up into really the mountain pass is where we're going to go. What happens right out of the gate in this chapter is that Bilbo thinks back to his home. And how many times has he done that? Has he done it almost every single chapter since he's left? I think he thinks back to home and the comforts there. And it reminded me of Lane and I watched that documentary, They Shall Never Grow Old, where in which if you were to go off to war, you would think back to the comforts of home.
Yeah.
Natural thing that you would do. And Bilbo seems to do that quite a bit. You know?
He does.
I mean,
yeah.
So
Longs for home. Especially, I mean, obviously the more uncomfortable, because with last chapter we saw that he would have been cool to never go home.
Yeah.
Like he would have traded the Shire. Nice. Like I think at one point Tolkien even said if he could be granted a wish to return right back to Bag End or stay in Rivendell, he would be fine with just staying in Rivendell. So it's like, and it's almost, I mean, think about it, I don't know what it's like to be in war. I only know, soldiers' accounts and people, men and women who've done it.
Right.
And it obviously, like if times are fine, you don't miss home as much. Like in Rivendell, you're not going to miss home. It's a wonderful experience. You're entranced by elves. It reminds you of home. But you get into really bad situations and you're automatically reminded of how good you had it at home. Why did you ever leave in the first place? Like, why did you decide? You old fool, Bilbo Baggins. How many times does he chastise himself and say, "You never? What did you think you were? What did you think you were doing? You're no burglar. You're just a hobbit. You belong back in the Shire in the comforts of your hobbit hole."
Yeah,
and yeah. So it's interesting how when those difficult situations, uncomfortable times come up, that's when it kicks into gear. Like, I want to go home.
Yeah,
and that's very relatable too. I mean, we're all like that. I mean, geez, man, there are days at work where I'm like, I just want to go home. I just want to go home.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the. I think it's done really well in the movie too. That ultimately comes as that point is where Bilbo's talking about, I just want to go home, and then he begins to realize, well, that's what the dwarves want. They want
yeah.
And they don't, and they don't
start to empathize with them.
This is them. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's
a great point.
Yeah, that is a really good point, because in this chapter, that is a slight difference, right? Bilbo never does tiptoe away and try to leave in the book, and that's something they did there to kind of help emphasize the idea that, oh yeah, I can go back to my home, but yet they don't have a home.
Yeah, they don't have one.
That's the whole point. We're trying to get them back to reclaim their homes. So,
Yep. Excellent point.
Yeah, to move on here. So as they're thinking about Durin's Day and how they're going to get there and moving forward, Gandalf is shaking his head thinking, fellas, I've been over there and you haven't been there in quite a while. And things are grown up and things are like there's more dangers and wilds there. Yeah. And I love this line because every year that I've taught, we teach a book of mice and men. And there's a poem, I think it's an old English. It's about
cool.
It's the line of mice and men is in it, and it's the best laid plans of mice and men often go astray or askew or whatever. So the idea there is that it's about this little
hobbit.
Who does all this stuff, and a plow comes through and tears it up, and oh, poor Mousy. And I have to find that and see if I can put a link down for friends, because it's pretty neat. It's what Of Mice and Men is based on. It's one of the it's kind of like
it's cool.
Makes allusions back
and
to
something
that.
Tolkien would have known about and probably been influenced by
right. And when I think, I mean, just the idea that he like that. Yeah. It's one of those older. Yeah, exactly. He would have. I'll just see if I can find that real quick, because I bet he would have read that and thought about that poem, because he says here, looking at what this wise wizard Gandalf and of good friends like Elrond, their plans often go astray. Sometimes when you are off on dangerous adventures over the edge of the wild, and Gandalf was a wise enough wizard to know it.
Wow.
So
yeah.
They have laid these plans. They've gotten some information on the moon runes and stuff like that. So they looked at the map and they're saying, okay, once you figure out a clue, especially in a game or in a book or whatever, oftentimes Matt and I even too, we're looking at theories and you find something, all of a sudden the fever hits and you're like, oh,
here we go, man. Yeah.
We've mapped this bad boy out. We have some clue or some knowledge, and you get this hype, this energy. I kind of feel like the dwarves have that right now, and Gandalf is the one kind of shaking his head, going, there's more.
No.
And
there's a lot more to come.
Yeah, and it's Tolkien again, like that line right there. And Gandalf was a wise enough wizard to know it. He's teaching us the power of humility, right? That this great wizard has the power to realize that, you know, no matter how mighty you are, no matter what kind of plans you have figured out, that they could all be nothing in no time, and to be that humble. Like it's the lesson Tolkien teaches us over and over again. If nothing else, to be humble, to stray from hubris, to realize that you're at the mercy of a lot of factors that you can't control. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And unknowns, especially going out into the wild like this, and the dwarves thinking, yeah, we know this place, we've been here before, and Gandalf saying, not as recently as me, it's different. Yeah. Okay, so just don't think that this is smooth sailing from here on out just because we know about a little secret. We got a long way to go. Which is funny because a few chapters ago, that was the dwarves' attitude towards Bilbo. Right? Bilbo sees one of the mountains and he goes, "Is that the lonely?" And they're thinking, "No, man, is this your first rodeo? Like, that's not buddy. The lonely mountain." Yeah. So it's interesting to see this. And again, it just places Gandalf as the man. He's the man. Like, if you're going to follow anybody, you're going to follow this guy. Yeah. And that's why he is such an important player and like mover in Middle Earth. You need another one? I'll get you another one.
I mean, and can I just say real quick? So I was listening to this on the audiobook, and I was at work, and I was kind of doing some stuff. And you hit that line of like where he's talking about Gandalf saying, he knew the evil danger, right? And then Moria, and like boom, that caught my attention. And then I just immediately, it's almost like my heart just sank, because you think about, Lord of the Gimli and the Lord of the Rings when they go in there and it's like, oh my, they're all dead, man.
Yep.
Like
that's a good point. That's
a good point. And it's like heartbreaking. Yeah. And then it is one of the things about going back and doing the Hobbit, where you're thinking about its context with Lord of the Rings, and it's just like, oh God, man, just like heartbreak. There's so much heart in these next two chapters. Really, there's like so much heartbreak, right, in like kind of knowing what happens afterwards, especially in the next chapter, right, when we get the ring, and just knowing everything that's going to come with it. And then just that line there too, right, like, the Mines of Moria, and really actually how similar this chapter in a way is to that in Lord of the Rings. I mean, it's a very similar situation in which it's Gandalf coming in, and we'll get to this, last second, right, to kind of save the day, but it's obviously much different outcome in Lord of the Rings.
That's a great point.
No, you're right. I mean, it's like there's
parallels.
There's definitely parallels, and so Gandalf is kind of, it's odd to think, right, that he is. When you say Moria and you think of that, that's already happened. Like, he knows something happened there, and there are dangers there. So like, we got to be careful going through this whole path. And ironically, right after this, right after they say that their best laid plans can kind of go askew, well, here we go. We enter this thunderstorm, or this lightning storm, in which this should have been an easy passage. They almost rush a decision here. Thanks, brother. Keely and Philly will go be sent out by Thorin to find shelter. And the reason that to find shelter is because we've got freaking giants tossing rocks. Yeah. So it's like Gandalf's like, just like I said, just like I thought. Like these dwarves say, like just remember, friends, there are bigger forces. There are tons of things out here that can go wrong. And so good energy. Glad we have the energy and we've got the clues. But we got a long ways to go, and so it's not, I guess it's kind of nice, because as Lane said, Bilbo has that moment earlier where he's kind of like, hey, there's a lonely mountain, and they kind of the dwarves put him in check. Mm-hmm. Now the dwarves have this energy, and Gandalf kind of says, check ourselves, because we're moving forward. So I don't know. What'd you think? I mean, like by the way, like I kind of think the way they did the giants in the film.
See, I wanted to ask you guys this.
I don't know if I like it.
I wanted to ask you guys this because there is a conversation that people have. Were there really stone giants, or was this Bilbo? Because if you look at it, it's just a description of a massive storm in the mountains, and it's only when Bilbo like peeks out and takes a look that he sees faintly like these giants. So is this really, are these actual giants battling in the mountain? Is it part of his because he's never experienced anything like this before? Is it part of his imagination? Maybe he thinks he sees something when really he doesn't. I like to think there actually are these stone giants, but I also can see how, you know, a hobbit scared to death, hearing all these fantastical tales his whole life, finally being caught up in one, could imagine something that's not really.
I think he actually says that he had never heard like the thunder and the lightning is something that Bilbo was not familiar with whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right. And so that.
So
was
is there in the Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings, both of which those books I am not at all, are there stone giants?
It's a great question.
I think so. So technically, what Thorin says here also, what kind of I think why they go with this is Thorin. So Bilbo may have had that thought that there were giants throwing things, but then Thorin says, and it's so ironic that we were talking about football earlier, because football is mentioned in this daggone chapter. Thorin says this won't do at all. Talking about what's going on, the storm, everything. He says if we don't get blown off or drowned or struck by lightning, we shall be picked up by some giant and kicked sky high for a football. So I thought,
which is like soccer or rugby or something. Lane
and I have been talking about clocks, gunpowder,
football. Modern references.
You can totally see that this is not something like Tolkien.
When was this written?
1930 something, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
So a good. When did Lord of the a good like
head,
15, 20 years before the Lord of the Rings, I believe. I think the Lord of the Rings were like in the mid 50s. They were released. 1937 was the original publication of The Hobbit.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is interesting. I love how Tolkien does this time and time again. It's why do we say he's the best? I mean, that's an opinion. I think he's the best, but I also think Lewis is the best, and they have very different styles. I think The Hobbit is very similar to what we see in Chronicles of Narnia, just because of the target audience. And he was writing it for his kids who were a little younger at the time. Yeah. But I love how he doesn't tell you. He doesn't tell you, just like he doesn't tell us who Tom Bombadil is. Just like he leaves other. There's so many instances where it's ambiguous. It's like, were they giants? Was this imaginings? Was Bilbo's like vision of these giants kind of maybe even cemented in his memory because of that comment from Thorin? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was just, Thorin was clearly just using a metaphor maybe, and Bilbo thinks, well, I definitely saw giants if Thorin's referenced them. That's a great question though, Matt, because I don't know, and I'm sure that we've got uppers just screaming going, yes, there are giants, or no, there are not. But I do know that, I think there's some reference to when certain cities were built. And I can't remember if it was just like the Númenóreans were huge, they were big men, or if things were actually built by giants. But someone fact checked us on that. Let us know. It's wonderful that we still have all these things to get to. Here you go, giants in Tolkien's Gateway. Let's see. But I love that it's up to us. It's up to our imagination in the same way that we get to see a lot of these things from sort of a slant towards Bilbo's perspective, as opposed to any of the other characters. That it's up to us to kind of, have this debate. Even, are they real? Were they really stone giants? Was it just the impression it left on Bilbo? It's so cool, man. So cool.
Well, this is interesting, and I guess since we brought up, we might as well just take a quick little.
Gondor was built by giants. Is that what it's in the White Mountains? Is that what we're seeing?
Well,
part of Minas Tirith.
It's the legend, that's what's interesting. So Gandalf often told stories about dragons, goblins, and giants. Okay. And Bilbo heard tales. So
that's that's a schema that's in his mind as well. These stories of Gandalf telling. Of him telling him about giants.
Right.
That's
the
interesting.
History of giants is obscure, though. Okay. So
just the way we like it in Middle Earth, man. Obscure and up for interpretation, baby.
Totally right. And that's everything you're saying is that's what he does sometimes is makes it so that these things are maybe not we're allowed to guess and wonder.
Yeah, and don't you see that as him like trusting readers to you get to make your own opinion. It's almost, in a way, it's almost like choosing those. Remember those old books where it was like you choose your ending kind of thing, like you chose the story.
Your own adventure, man.
Yes, man. And you love those because it's different every time. You can read the same book as someone else and get a different story. And I love that it's definitely not the same thing, but it's a similar sort of. It's up to you to decide I'm going to give you a couple different possibilities, and you get to decide what you think was really going on. So, and the cool thing is you can support either idea on that. You can find evidence to support. You could go hardcore giants. You could go hardcore just an impression of the thunderstorm itself, and you could have decent evidence either way, which is cool because that gives for a great conversation. It allows a story to live on past the pages. You're having conversations about it, and it's the genius of it, man.
This is interesting. Because we're Lane and I are starting to get into more of the what's his first age, Valaquinta, but it's the idea that like in
one of the races of Arda.
Yeah, well, in creating, like are they though? That was so.
Oh, okay. Or is it just trolls?
They don't appear. And Treebeard, remember when he goes through the old
lists?
They're not mentioned, I don't think.
But neither were hobbits. See, there's always precedent for these different things that so if you went by Treebeard's list, then hobbits don't exist. But hobbits clearly do exist.
And they clearly do. That's a good point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. And the wood giants even.
Yeah.
And mountain giants.
And it is sort of
cool.
implied by Gandalf that he was wanting to convince a giant to help secure the high pass in the Misty Mountains. But I get why people I totally understand why people would say this, because and maybe that's why they did that in the film, is they made them look kind of like, or were they a part of the mountain?
Yeah.
Like, did they just step off?
I love
the
way they did it in the films. I mean, it's like Peter Jackson's wheelhouse to his bread and butter to have scenes like that. And then even later in this chapter when we get all people, I don't think everyone liked it because it felt kind of like video gamey or something, and it was very similar to things he did in King Kong. But like that whole like chase and pursuit scene of the goblins under the mountains, I loved that as well. Like so interesting, visually stunning. Peter Jackson does action sequences as well as anybody, and the cool thing that the way they're kind of married is like Tolkien will write something that Jackson then expanded on and made visually stunning, and the combination, man. Yeah. If Tolkien was still alive and could write stuff, and Jackson could like turn it into films, and they got along somehow, and they didn't butt heads or whatever, it would be. There's a reason. I think it would be too good. We wouldn't be able to handle it, and that's why they exist in different times. Yeah.
It is.
I love this. This is so cool.
One of the. Yeah, first of all, Peter Jackson's Bread House totally sounds like an epic restaurant.
Oh my God!
I would totally go.
It was almost Matt that did it. I almost
you almost destroyed all of our equipment.
Wow, dude, Peter Jackson's Bread House. I I think that exists in
go,
Wellington.
Man.
I would too, man.
I would go.
I would eat all his bread.
Oh, I'm keto right now, but I would.
And Matt's
go.
like, I would still,
sign me up.
And they would have a special dish that was the Ezra, which was the scraped too thin, because he just can't handle it. You know what they're saying about him online. I mean, he can't do it all.
Scraped too thin.
So, but no, I'm totally with you on the idea of Peter Jackson as like a great director. That happens a lot too. I think a lot of times there are people who are better at being a director than they are a writer. As and I talk about this in Game of Thrones all the time. And that,
what was that? It sounded like the evil outside of Brighton Village.
It was a stone giant. What
was that? Was that your phone?
That was my new notification. Sorry about
that.
I get scared.
I thought it was Wicked.
We're getting punked. We're getting
punked, baby. You better believe it.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So I guess real quick here. So one of the things I bring up often is because I think, Lane, do you read from the book or do you read from an ebook?
I read from the book, dude. I'm one of the, like, Ezra. Okay. Ezra teases me because I get in there and I underline and I circle.
As does the same thing. As does the same thing. So I always read Kindle. And one of the things I like about it is there are segments in Kindle in which you can see where like thousands of people have highlighted something.
Sarah has one of those and she loves that feature. Yeah.
So it's one of the things I love. So there's a line right here, right as they're deciding to do something else. It says, there is nothing like looking if you want to find something. You certainly usually find something if you look, but it is not always quite the something you are after.
Let's go.
It's just such a Tolkien line, right? It is just
a Tolkien line.
Line,
and it's definitely forced. Not only is it talking about what we're gonna find, the cave. Let's just talk about we're gonna get there. But beyond that, what do we find?
I mean, I don't want to cross universes here, but I even hear the voice of old Luke Skywalker. This isn't going to go the way that you think.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Those are the best stories. The ones that you think you're going in one direction and the author does something that's a total 180, a hairpin turn, and it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work, and it does, and it sucks you in, and it keeps you going until the next hairpin turn. And yeah.
And it's like I remember as telling me about when you guys were starting this podcast, because you guys started up right about the same time that Ez and I started Bend the Knee. And again, this is how it works. Ez tells me what he does with Lane and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I remember him coming to me and saying, it's like, guys, we could spend all day in the Shire, but we got to go. I mean, we got to, we're going to get out and get to this adventure. I mean,
That's
the Shire is a great place to hang out, but we can't go anywhere if we don't.
You have to get out and you have to go, and so it's not going to. And what we find, and actually, that's interesting that Matt read that line, because it works for the ring. It works for everything that Gandalf says. Gandalf says to Bilbo at one point early on that when he's talking about, well, I think this is especially in the movie. I don't know if exactly like this in the book or not, but when he says that it may not be everything that you think. Like talking to Bilbo, you may go off and find glory, but you may come back changed. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's that idea that our adventure has to take place, and we may think, oh, this is grand, it's awesome. And that's what we like watching, is our character going through that progression. For Matt and I, it's Randall Thor in Wheel of Time, tapping him on the shoulder and saying, adventure time. And then us realizing it's not going to go exactly the way that we think it's not the storybook kind of ending or tale. It's got twists and turns. Or
Jon Snow or Luke Skywalker or all of it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what makes
Lane
the best.
Smith, Matt Brady, Ezra Kirk,
Tom Brady. Ezra Bridger.
That's what makes the best stories. That and having something worth fighting for.
And the other
Samwise Gamgee.
Let's go.
The end of Two Tower. I mean, I cry.
And the other thing too, like you have to leave. You have to leave to go on the adventure, but a lot of times you have to leave to save the place that you have to leave.
Yep.
To save the Shire, you have to leave the Shire, and you have to go out there and do something. And then when you come back, you might not even, your sacrifice might be that's no longer your place. And that's also something that Tolkien talks about. That stop. And you think about, you think about what happens with these dwarves eventually too, right? They fulfill their quest.
Oh my gosh.
But it has ramifications. It has a lasting impact that, again, wasn't what they thought it was going to be.
It reminds me.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, man. Go ahead.
It reminds me of the movie itself wasn't necessarily all that great, but Thor: Dark World, the second Thor movie, right?
Yeah.
There's a scene at the beginning of that movie in which Thor is there's this big party going on, right? And they've done Avengers, they've done all these things. This big party's going on, and he's just kind of sitting there looking, because he's in he's in Asgard, but he really wants to be back on Earth, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a saying. Just that's a scene that always comes to my mind in those same types of
home.
things.
This is crazy. We were even talking the other day about the fourth age, like the different ages, and how different ages in Middle Earth have different themes and overarching generalizations.
Yep.
And we were talking about the fourth. We were talking about Aragorn. I know that I'm getting way off topic, but this is fitting to what we're talking about.
No, it's okay. That's great. Yeah.
We were talking about Aragorn, and we were talking about how many partings, right? The job is done. Victory is won, and Aragorn doesn't want the fellowship to break again. And he's saying, no, stay a little longer. And the hobbits are thinking it's time to go. It's time to get back home. Even Gandalf is thinking it's time that we go back to our places, and move forward. And Aragorn can't. He's holding on. I don't want, we already got split up once. And then how his whole life was building towards and preparing him for this conflict. And once the conflict is resolved, what do you do then? And I think in a lot of ways, it was also maybe, and I don't know this for sure, but I think about Tolkien and other soldiers who went off to war. You come back home, and you hear all these soldiers who they go to war. They come home and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. There's this absence there where before there was this great purpose and a very real threat that had to be addressed and dealt with every day and processed and prepared for, and then that's gone. And how do you move on? And so we were talking about the fourth age and Aragorn, and how there were other things that he went on to accomplish, and the conflict wasn't resolved by any means. But like, how difficult is that once you've gained, So the thing about Thor, like sitting there at that table, right? And it's like, okay, well, this is it. Like what else? Like maybe my great task is over. I think it's also commentary on age. Like you get to a certain age and you think, wow, my time is done, but my years are short, right? Like what else can I do? How do I continue to impact the world? And when do I know that it's like, I don't know, dude. It's crazy. And you think about Tolkien, his themes ultimately were these are stories about death, right?
Yeah.
And these are stories about dealing with that. And it's a crazy process that we all have to go through and we all have to navigate.
Come on.
And it's easier with friends. It's better with relationships. But I just love it, man, because it's something we all experience at different times. We all can relate to. And it's necessary for that journey, bros. It's necessary.
Yes, it is.
It's just so funny because I'm staring at and I know we're both thinking about the exact same line. There's this line in Game of Thrones. Gods, I was strong.
Gods, I was strong, man. Well,
it's
like getting older, like things. One thing I was thinking, we often relate things to war and warriors coming back home. But the more I've thought about the various fandoms and stuff, we use that. But it's purpose. It's really whatever your occupation, your job, because actually, honestly, the pandemic and the closure made me realize that, isn't it a little bit like maybe not for everyone, but like for some people, what do you do when your purpose is gone, your job, there's a void? Where do we go? The same thing with the warrior. When the warrior's purpose and the victory in the battle is won, what do we do? What's supposed to happen next? And so that's interesting. And one more thing, this is radical. And I have to do this because Matt is on here. And this is a tidbit spoiler for him. We cover the Wheel of Time thing, which once Lane and I are done with The Hobbit, if I ever could encourage Lane or any of our listeners to read one more thing in addition, outside of, and this I being dead serious, because everyone knows how much I love Star Wars and I love Game of Thrones and all that kind of stuff. If I could encourage somebody to read one more series outside of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, which I love dearly as a book series, book-wise, it's my favorite. It is my favorite. But outside of that would be Wheel of Time. And it's because that author has such a great appreciation for what, like this writing style, the themes that are in here, and everything that Lane was saying about sometimes you have to leave a place and go and protect it. And then you come back to that place and you've realized that, yes, it's home, but home then also along the way moved to someone and a group of people, and you're like, ooh. So I kind of love that. Now it's a little bit, it's slightly, in this, it's Bilbo thinking back to the Shire, and it's Frodo and everyone leaving and going and protecting, and we're saving and preserving the Shire. It's the same thing in Wheel of Time, which it's the two rivers. We're going to go leave and protect that. And then some of those individuals will come back. Some come back and they stay, and it's great and it's wonderful. But some, like Frodo, come back and they're changed. And that they saved it for someone else. Frodo saved
the ultimate
it for
sacrifice.
Sam and for Rosie and for Pippin and Mary.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I don't know why, I love stories like that. I love those stories. Yeah.
And I think it's also, I mean, I don't know if it's explicitly said in the books or anything, but I just, when I think of Bilbo, and we've talked about this in our group chat, about Bilbo just willingly gives up the ring, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, part of it is probably is the draw of the ring, right? But I think another part of him not wanting to give it up, certainly before he leaves, right, to go on his adventure, it's his adventure, and it's his part of it is like when you have that piece, you're able to look at it and remember this adventure you
almost
had.
a memento of sorts.
Certainly something that obviously nobody else right, exactly, in the Shire has anything close to. I mean, even if he just had obviously he has Sting, but even if he had even something else that he could just it's like I went on, nobody from the Shire except for the hobbits and Lord of the Rings goes on an adventure where you meet elves and are with this great wizard, and I mean, nobody does that kind of a thing. And so for him, I think that's another part of him in his reluctance to give up the ring.
Yeah, totally.
And I mean, it's like that thing, right? You think about like, wanting to go back and do all these things because that's what he wants to do. He's like, I want to go see I want to go back. I want one more adventure.
One more adventure. Yeah. And that's your warrior returned home, or someone who, even after retirement or whatever it might be. It's like, wow. Oftentimes, I'll tell you right now, as a school teacher, we have so many teachers who come back at the high school level and they sub. They do different things.
Can't stay away, can they?
Yeah, they can't stay away. They get back in it and they want to dabble a little bit.
MJ coming back to play for the Wizards.
Yeah, it's all of that.
Tom moving on to Tampa Bay. Like
Tom versus time, baby.
You taste that adventure and you can't let it go. And there is something. Again, we're going back to passion, right? There's something to that that inspires all of us to find something that we love enough to. Stay up until freaking 3 a.m. doing when you've got 3 babies, and a weekend packed full of adventure to do, and jobs and families and driving down to Amanda and time difference and on the other coast of America, and it's like it makes it worth it, and it makes it an exciting pursuit and an adventure. Like that's totally true, dude. Like you're saying, just try one more. Let's do it one more time.
Yeah, and I guess to take this all the way back.
This is awesome.
What
this
Matt
is
started.
great.
Yeah, Matt started us on this, which was that
footballs.
Football. This
is it, Lane. This is how Ez and I go. By the way, I mean it literally. It's rabbit hole city.
The only way to do it.
It's so good.
This is what book clubs are all about. It's about finding a catalyst in the text, and then because everyone's now at this point, no one's expecting us to just go through and read the chapter, but when you think about a reread, you're like, okay, we're going to go over point A, point B from the beginning of the chapter to the end, and what happens is you find a point that sparks this conversation, and then you're talking to each other, and it's like, wow,
that happens a lot.
Yeah, it's like, and that's the way the story jumps off the page and lives in real life. Is we just had a half an hour conversation that came from a couple lines and has like built, and that's the coolest part, man. I love it. I love it.
And that's why I think, like we all three of us have picked strategically, because we're in multiple book clubs and we're in multiple fandoms, whether it be Narnia, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, or Wheel of Time and stuff. It's like there's something about those and those storytellers, whether it's George Lucas, or it's Tolkien or Lewis or whoever.
Jack Lewis,
they can, I'm telling you right now, tell a story, and they're great storytellers, and we're all in our own story and we're working our way through. And so it's just so, I think it's so fascinating. It's super neat. It's why we have these clubs and these fandoms, and we spend so much time covering them. So yeah,
and it's one of the things I love about Lord of the Rings, especially in that compared to other big fandoms, Lord of the Rings does not have nearly as much content. Like
it's done. Yeah.
Like, and it's in Game of Thrones we do it because the books, the rest, it's the series isn't finished, so we end up glossing over all of these things, just like this line, because it's like, well, what's going to happen in the books, right? Because we don't know yet. Even in Star Wars, which was finished, but they're still always creating it. I think so often we miss things. Look at what the sequels did to Return of the Jedi, right? So now in this scene in Return of the Jedi, in which Darth Vader, right, Anakin Skywalker goes from Darth Vader to Anakin Skywalker to save his son, Luke Skywalker, and throwing the Emperor, down this shaft. That's what the scene should be. It should be about Darth Vader saying, I'm done with the dark side because this is my son. Just like Luke said before that, there's nothing you can do. There's no power that you can give me that would cause me not to want to choose my father. And that's what we should take from the scene. But because Star Wars is it's always changing and all this stuff, now we think about, well, how did Palpatine survive that? And what does it have to do with this? And what does it have to do with this? And it's one of the things I love. It changes the focus. And it's one of the things I love about Lord of the Rings, in that, it's why my favorite scene in the movies is Sam's speech at the end of Two Towers, because you get I'm not focusing on, well, does it tie into some theory that's coming later, and does it do this? You just focus on the content of what it is and what its importance is.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah.
And
that's a really good,
that's one of the things I love most about it.
Yeah, because as much as I like to speculate and theorize, because I really do in those fandoms, is one of my favorite things is to speculate. It is very, 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 very awesome to just sit here and say, this happened, like those moments. Yeah. No, it's just it's making me. I'm sorry, it's making me think about how the conversation we were just having about just one more adventure, right? Just one more adventure, and how some of these fandoms that are active and alive are doing that constantly. One more adventure, one more. Let's go. Let's push it a little further. Right.
Let's see how we can add on. And it's Bilbo.
Yeah.
Who has all these plans, and he gets to Rivendell and said, I meant to see it all again. Marvel at the lonely mountain, see Mirkwood again.
Yep.
But age, it seems, finally caught up with me.
Right.
And he doesn't push it. He doesn't go further. And how that's reflected in, I mean, obviously it's because the creator is gone, and in this fandom, it's like no one else touches that. The only person who can even fill in the gaps is his son, who had an understanding of his writings.
Yeah.
And then there's an estate, but the understanding is that the storytelling is, in terms of writing books, is over, and that's very interesting. That is very interesting.
But it's not. It's nice, and I love what Matt's saying is that, like, this is something. What is nice about Lord of the Rings is that you can keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
And what the problem is that in Star Wars, for years before they did the before it was sold, honestly, and Matt, we got to talk about this at some point. I used to rewatch Return of the Jedi over and over and over. And how many of our listeners have read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings over and over and over? And it never they get something new from it. They love it. It's something that you can
last half an hour of Fellowship of the Ring over and over the film.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Even the scene, honest to God, my favorite scene outside of, what happens in this chapter in The Hobbit is the scene where Gandalf is explaining why he chose Bilbo. Like Galadriel,
which is not
and
actually,
they bring in the music, and it's just like, because he's a good person, right? And it's like, it's so good, and it's just something that this series does different. And maybe it's just because, of the time it was written before all of these other things, where he's just writing a story as opposed to writing a franchise.
That's true too. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And he
would have done it right. And what is the word? Not irregardless.
Irregardless is an
regardless of whether anyone read it or not. Like, he was gonna write it, and that's
right.
And in the same way, I think, like George Lucas, like, if the films wouldn't have gotten written, it wouldn't have gotten made, he would have written. He had the story. He had it laid out.
Right.
And even I remember I sent you guys something, because in his treatment of the sequels, he had a similar realization of Luke Skywalker that we saw in The Last Jedi, of kind of being this not fallen hero, but different, changed, right? Unexpectedly changed. And so, interesting.
Yeah, no.
I guess we should finish that. No, do we have to finish? Let's just keep talking.
Well, there's
screw this chapter.
That's great.
There's orc cleavage.
We can keep going. Yeah.
I'm really, and where I want to dive to next is honestly
dive into the cleavage.
Wow, holy cow! We find the cave. All right, Philly and Killy. Right. Get there.
Yeah.
There's no Tariel. We're not there yet in the book. She will show up.
Matt's
later.
Disappointed, but.
Matt's upset that she's
well, as said earlier to me, and he hasn't explained this at all, but he's like,
I will later.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, then we'll save it.
No. I totally said, I was like, Matt's a dwarf. I've just started, like, I've kind of figured, like, I was thinking about, like, who you are in the Tolkien verse, and, like, your nature and who you are, because I feel like a wizard. And I feel like, Lane's always said he's kind of a ranger, but like
I want to be a ranger. I think I'm a hobbit. I'm
exactly. I guess it's what you want to be versus like I think I'm kind of a
I see what you're saying though.
I'm definitely a dwarf.
Matt, he's diving deep. he's going for the gold. I see that because I originally when Ez said dwarf, I was like, maybe man of Lake Town. Maybe he's like a bard type character. And I'm like, no, man, I'm seeing it now. Totally a dwarf.
Oh, dude, he
totally a dwarf.
Sometimes I go back and feel like it's. I don't know if he's like.
Let's awaken let's delve too greedily and too deep. Let's get there, baby. Let's
Matt will go for it, dude. And once he finds it, like I mean, those elves can shove off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shove off because I've got the mithril. He's got the Arkenstone. And he was like, I found this, y'all, back. That's awesome,
it's just,
dude. It's kind of funny to me.
That passion, bro. That
but
passion.
he's also like,
Right.
I sometimes feel like whether it's Ballin or Dwalin, I think he's like a combination of both. And it just cracks me up because Ballin's a little bit more.
Ball Dwalin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think I tend a little more towards Gimli, but either or whatever.
All right, I'll give you Gimli. I like
Gimli's
it. Yeah.
solid, bro.
Actually, that's great because that's and I really like the dwarves. I've always liked the dwarves.
And then you get a nice little fling with Galadriel. I mean, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
You get some hair from Galadriel, whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever's going on there.
So,
All right, but as we move forward here, let's one of the things that Lane and I talked about, Matt, was in Fellowship, Frodo has a lot of dreams. And so what happens is when we get into that cave, do you remember the part where basically it's Bilbo's warning to Gandalf that allows him, like the back door is opening and that the floor is starting to tilt, which, by the way, they don't exactly say that in this. Like, it's not like the way you see it in the film. I thought was great that the floor was almost like a trap door or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's actually pretty interesting. So that door is opening up back there, but it's Bilbo having sort of a half dream. He sounds like he's sleepy, but he's awake. Was he really dreaming it? What was it that kind of alerted him? Was it just that he couldn't sleep? Because it's kind of what is said. Frodo has a lot of dreams. Those are more like he's kind of far-seeing, essentially, and seeing things that are happening elsewhere. But I thought it was interesting that we're kind of calling this a dream, and I wonder if Tolkien took that and said Bilbo had, because we never really explain. One of the things that he leaves ambiguous is the magic of hobbits and what they can do and what they can't do. And so I think
of the ordinary kind, right?
Right, and not the ordinary kind of magic. Yeah, so it's like as you're reading this, you're thinking like, okay, well, what can the hobbits do? Or is there more to these hobbits? Like if you read this for the first time and you hadn't seen The Lord of the Rings, you might be like, wow, this is is this a power or something? Like what is it that he can do? And so, to move us through, we find a nice place. We get in there. We're sleeping. Let's see. They had their ponies. They had all their pack horses. And remember, at one point, it's mentioned that this is kind of the last time. It's almost like it tells us, right? It tells us before the goblins even show up. This is the last time we're going to see the ponies, just so you know. Yeah. And then you're thinking like, well, wait, why is that? Like I
love when Tolkien does that too. He kind of breaks that wall and he's like, I'm going to let you know that things are about to get crazy. Just hang on for a second.
Yeah, he kind of he totally like broke through there and did that. And you're just like, wait, what? And so this is where then he says that, and then we have the dream where he's dreaming. He dreamed that a crack in the wall at the back of the cave got bigger and bigger and opened wider and wider, and he was very afraid, but he could not call out or do anything but lie and look. Then he dreamed that the floor of the cave was giving way, and he was slipping, beginning to fall down, goodness knows to where. It's his cry out that saves everyone. Gandalf, with a flash of a light, is able to kind of fight off some of these goblins, but the rest of them, they take the freaking, the dwarves.
Do you think
seize them?
To go on the dreaming thing a little bit, I'm sure all hobbits dream, right? But it's interesting that we see it in Bilbo and Frodo. Do you think it has something to do with like that Tookish side? Do you think that like influences or provokes those dreams that are like significant?
Yeah. There's something extra.
Bros, I'm feeling this song, man. I'm feeling this might be a rap.
I'm down.
I'm feeling this might be a rap.
Well, let me read us into this.
Please,
let me read this in. So as they're captured, right, and they're being taken down, now there came a glimmer of a red light before them, and the goblins began to sing or croak, keeping time with the flap of their flat feet on the stone.
It's a rap, dude.
And shaking their prisoners as well.
Clap, snap, the black crack, grip, grab, pinch, nab, and down to Goblin Town you go, my lad, my lad, yeah. I said clash, crash, crush, smash, hammer and tongs, knocker and gongs, pound, far underground, ho, ho, my lad. Swish, smack, not swish and flick, whip, crack, batter and beat, yammer and bleat, work, nor dare to shirk. While goblins quaff and goblins laugh, round and round, far underground below, my lad.
Wow.
I think it's a rap, guys. I don't know. Either that or a march song.
Well, here's the.
What do you got, Matt? Are you going hard rock? Are you going hard rock here?
All of a sudden, Matt just
I'm just
in a ballad.
Well, I'm just gonna let me just read literally the next line because this was my thoughts on that. It sounded truly terrifying.
Just like that.
No, just joking. No.
Just like that, bro.
I don't know. No, man, it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Right now, I'm just you guys said. I'm thinking orc cleavage. I'm thinking clap, snap, the black crack.
It's
clap.
all.
I'm thinking. I don't know. I'm just thinking. It's all
in the stars, as the elves would say.
It's all in Goblin Town.
It's going down in Goblin Town.
Goblin Town.
Everybody's orking for the weekend, baby.
The up talking Tolkien record. It's going down in Goblin Town.
I mean, maybe I'm just feeling Brodo swaggins. I don't know.
Yeah, man. No, that was legit. That was legit. I did not expect that. I was expecting some weird voice.
We can have. Hey, look, we can have. Like we. I'm down. I'm down to make the record too. I mean,
I think I see. I got,
boom. I can
look. He's got the.
My God,
he's
Matt's
got a shred.
We're gonna do like some metal version, like screamo.
I was gonna say, Matt, do this.
I mean, we'll get Ez on banjo. I got an acoustic.
Oh man,
I can play the box. I can do the box.
Matt, be careful. Be careful. I don't want to end up in another band. All right.
Me either. We do not want to go back to our roots on that.
Hey, we could call it a fellowship man.
Maybe we call it a fellowship
that too.
Fellowship man.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. Holy cow.
Oh, God. I love
that was
you
a
guys.
great rap.
This
That was a great rap.
This is great.
I love it.
I am starting to kind of I'm falling into a little bit of a trap myself because I now with the songs, bro, the pressure's on to make sure it's something that Rebecca Robney would go, okay, that's sound musically. Do you know what I mean? Because she's analyzing our music now. The pressure is we've got to keep raising the bar here.
Right.
And
we can
I love that note's going in there.
Just in case. I mean,
hey, Sarah called it. She's like, every episode, Lane's got to do something that makes Ez shiver a little bit and go,
No,
that's too off script.
I'm not worried about it. I'm honestly not worried about it.
I got to bleep that out because we got kids here. We used to snap rubber bands. I used to say, okay, I swear so much. I have 2 rubber bands, and every time I swear, it's a snap, and then we're done. And then I started doing more than 2, but then I had the girls, and I'm like, I want them to listen to this someday and not be ashamed of their dad.
And really, we just ran out of rubber bands.
We ran out of rubber bands. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, we're good. And actually, I want to mention too. So Rebecca Robney. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I this is another plug again. If you're reading ahead and you're with us, send us in your version. I would love to play someone's version.
We need music from you guys. Clearly, obviously, we need your music talents back.
It sounded truly terrifying.
We know that Matt's he's gonna shred one of these Elven songs later. I think he's gonna.
Well, I got a keyboard right here too.
Oh my gosh, dude!
He's got like a whole studio. He's got like a whole music studio over there.
It's the studio. Yeah.
Okay, well now I have expectations, Matt. I have expectations.
We'll make it.
I'll be honest with you, Lane. Matt was the fellow man.
He was the fellow man.
He was the fellow man. D-chords and everything. All right. Enough of that.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on. So it's a terrible song.
Awful.
Just some pretty bad stuff happening. And as they take them down here, the way is lit by, we got red fire, right? We've got torches on the wall. They're laughing. These goblins are not very nice.
They're pleased with themselves too, right?
They are. They're very, very, very
quite
happy.
Quite a find. Like a dwarven king.
Right.
Like, come on. That's
exactly. Guys, it's the last we see of those excellent little ponies.
I know, man. I know.
Gosh.
But okay, I know
it's like Artek in Never Ending Story.
I know. Well, he comes. Hey, now Matt, hold on. He does come back at the end, all right. So,
but when you see the ponies go, isn't that what you think of? And it's like,
well, but here's what gives me hope, Matt, is we've seen this before. We've seen these ponies kind of let go and never seen it. But Bill the pony, and we expect the worst. We hear wolves howling in the distance, and we think Bill's dead. Bill's gone.
He's goner.
But we know that that's not true. We know that that these ponies find their way back. I mean, I don't know what happens. These ponies probably get roasted over spit and totally eaten, and like they're reviewed on YouTube for sure. Like, wow, this pony tasted good. Wow, this pony tasted bad.
Well, it's interesting though that like this is what Tolkien does is he mentions the ponies because we even mentioned that Gandalf was riding on a white horse, but yet he was given a white pony, which is interesting that Gandalf the Grey is given, a white pony. And it's because it could traverse sort of the mountains and things. So right. So the goblins are going to eat horses and ponies and whatnot. So there's
Have you guys ever eaten horse?
No, and I don't.
I had a little on a pizza in Italy. It was delicious.
Are you being dead serious?
Yeah.
I think it's really, from what I've heard, it's very thick. Like it's not thick, but it was
strong.
Really,
it was a strong meat.
It's like jerky. Like you really have to chew it, right?
I loved it. I loved chewing on that horse. Can we edit that out too?
I don't know. I don't
know if we should leave that in.
I think that's kind of like one of those things where it's like people really like horses, and I'm not so sure that.
I'm joking. Leave it. That's fine.
I think some people.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. People have different cultures in different parts of the world. I mean,
it was an Italian pizza, and there was thoroughbred right in the middle. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm leaving it. I
can't believe that. I can't believe you're taking that out.
I'm not. I wouldn't have. No, it's
just so you can relive that moment. Is that what it is?
Meat is meat. Boy, I wish people could see our doc sometimes.
Meat is meat
for so many different reasons.
Take that out.
All right.
I will say, for everything Ez has told me, Ez is always like, hold on, I got to edit up Talking Tolkien. I'm like, how does it take you? Like when you edit our podcast, it's like 2 minutes. It is like, then he edits up and it's like an hour process.
No, hold on. That's actually because sometimes we're a 2.5 hour podcast, my friend. That's a part of it.
But sometimes Ez will admit, he's like, bro, I didn't even catch half the stuff you said. And I say, I don't remember any of it. Ez like, I don't remember a dang word I said. And he goes, Lane, there's some stuff that just probably should be left in the underhill and not overhill, if you know what I mean.
Matt, imagine that you're like sifting through an episode, right? And you're like, oh, I'm gonna see if I can catch all these golden nuggets. Well, I don't know. We call them golden nuggets. I'm not sure what you call them. And sometimes I'm just like, it's amazing. It's like a lot of times too, folks who watch if you watch on Patreon, by the way, thank you for supporting us on Patreon.
Yes, thank you.
We really appreciate that. There we go. But you will notice that a lot of times, I'm in the book, I'm looking ahead, I'm trying to find a little nugget for us.
Doing your job,
I love
right.
Lane does the unexpected. He catches me off guard, and he's always he's testing me because Matt. The other reason why it takes like the editing takes a little bit longer. I go back and listen, and I don't know why I feel like I missed half the show. I'm reading, especially when we get to the reread. Like I'm looking ahead, especially in Lord of the Rings. And this is true. I'm looking ahead. Those chapters are so long. We're driving forward, and Lane knows that I've got my eyes down at the book, and I
gotta make a distraction.
He does something that I miss, and I catch it in post production. I'm going through, and I'm like, oh, I cannot believe that was said, and I didn't react to it. And then a lot of times Lane will go, oh, okay, cool, yeah.
Right. I sort of feel at the end of most episodes, I feel defeated. I'm like, oh, Ez doesn't think I'm funny, or
the funny thing is
he doesn't listen to me.
Everyone else is laughing when I should be laughing, and they're going, Ez didn't catch that, and that even makes it funnier.
No, they're sitting there going, Ez is such a pro. That he just pushes through all the bull crap.
Or is he straight faced?
And he leads us on this adventure while Pippin is making a ruckus.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's just
we love you, dude. You're amazing.
I love you too. It's funny. It actually works out.
Oh gosh,
in such a great way. All right. So as we move down through here, they're going through all their stuff, right? Gosh, you start to see that we learn a little bit about goblins, and so I think I should mention this: that goblins are cruel, they're wicked, they're bad-hearted. They don't make beautiful things, right? They make things like hammers, axes, swords, pickaxes, tongs, instruments of torture, terrible stuff, right? Not good. So, they did not hate dwarves especially, no more than they hated everybody and everything, and particularly the orderly and the prosperous. In some parts, wicked dwarves had even made alliances with them.
That's crazy to think about.
Which is wild. Like, you don't think about, we definitely don't think about dwarves in that light. But they had a special grudge against Thorin's people because of the war which they which you have heard mentioned. So this is that, we've been hearing about this throughout the, this tale. And so there's a particular hatred, I guess, or some animosity between these groups.
I do love how he workshops those ideas too. It's very clever because he makes all these allusions that, he thinks if I ever come back and elaborate on these stories, I can build those up. I can tell more of that story, but not here. This isn't the time or place for it. Whereas almost it feels like in Lord of the Rings, he takes more liberties that way. He will elaborate more. You know what I mean? We get. That's why people say it's so hard to read Lord of the Rings because he gets off track. He's naming stuff that we don't even know what he's referencing and things that happen in the Silmarillion. But it's interesting how he's starting that here. He's like, okay, well, this is something that happened. You've heard me talk about it. I'm not going to tell you now. That's a tale for another day. And it also gives you it also spurs you on as a reader subconscious because you're like, when is that going to be mentioned? Is it later this book? Mm-hmm. Is he going to write another book that I can hear that story? Yeah.
You want to go exploring.
Builds you as an audience. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so we refer to this individual as Great Goblin, the Great Goblin, right? This is who they're brought before this individual, and we kind of figure out that we figure out that he's great and that he doesn't like Thorin and he doesn't like his people. And they're questioned essentially, right? They also bring Bilbo forward, and they don't even know what to call Bilbo, which is sort of a reoccurring theme, right? The Ents didn't know, the trolls didn't know, right?
Little rabbit,
yeah. So here we go. This is it. This is kind of the climax of this chapter, which is Thorin speaking here, and he says that he's Thorin. Thorin the Dwarf, at your service, he replied when he's asked. They're accused of being thieves and murderers and friends of elves, which that's a terrible thing to be, right?
Bad
to
news.
be a friend of an elf, right? With the goblins all around you. Of the things which you suspect and imagine, we had no idea at all. We sheltered from a storm. So they're being accused of a lot of different things and just spying, right, on the private business of these people. And of the goblins, and they're not doing that at all. They're trying to seek passage through, and so Thorin's being truthful in that, we're just trying to get through here. We sheltered from the storm, and we thought that we weren't meaning to trespass essentially, but here they are. Yeah. So, and that was true enough, right? The Great Goblin. So you say? Might I ask where or what you were doing up in the mountain at all? And where you were coming from, and where you were going to. In fact, I should like to know all about you. Not that it will do you this much good, Thorin Oakenshield. I know too much about your folk already. Calls him by name, and So Thorin's as I guess they are on a secret kind of business and trip here, and that is one of the things they don't want to give too much away. Yeah. So he's trying to say, we're just seeking path. We're trying to get, across the mountains. We're not really, you're not going to tell these guys what's up because
we're not going to Erebor or anything.
You don't want them to know you have a secret map and a key and all these different, special things and stuff. We got to keep that secret. We got to keep that safe. Right?
Nice tie-in. Wow.
All right. I thought that was pretty good.
That was good.
Yeah. All right. So they're journeying along and, I'm sorry. He was saying that they were journeying along to visit their relatives, nephews, nieces, and so on. He's called a liar again. Several of our people were struck by lightning in the cave when we went up to capture him. Yeah. And so we know, the reader knows, that's Gandalf, right? And Gandalf's not. He hasn't been captured. Thank the light. He's out there running around. So the Great Goblin gave them a truly awful howl of rage. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Here we go. Sorry, Matt. My bad. Here we go.
You skipped.
Don't skip the best part. Matt's gonna flip out over there.
This is it, man.
This is it, man.
This is the whole part.
This is it. Literally,
this is the best part.
God. So during the questioning, right? They're talking about the lightning strike. They're talking about the things that happened, and that they were dead, right? Also, he has not explained this. He held out the sword which Thorin had wore, the sword which came from the troll's lair. The great goblin gave a truly awful howl of rage when he looked at it, and all his soldiers gnashed their teeth, clashed their shields, and stamped. They knew the sword at once. It had killed hundreds of goblins in its time. When the fair elves of Gondolin hunted them in the hills or did battle before their walls, they had called it Orcrist, Goblin Cleaver. But the goblins called it simply Biter. They hated it and hated worse anyone that murdered or that carried it. And so they're pissed because they see this sword. That's really what it is that sets them off, right? And it's also interesting. It's really neat that we get that reference to Gondolin. I thought that was neat, right?
Yeah.
When the fair elves of Gondolin hunted them in the hills and did battle,
which kind of validates. Well, I don't know if it validates, but like Elrond had mentioned that as well, and it's like, all right, so this is pretty. This Gondolin place was pretty legendary,
right?
You know that both goblins and high elves still talk about it,
right? Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. So seeing the sword and seeing this reminder causes the Goblin King, the Great Goblin, to freak out, right? Calls them murderers and elf friends. The Great Goblin shouted, "Slash them, beat them, bite them, gnash them, take them away to the dark holes full of snakes. Never let them see the light again." And so it's on. All right. I mean, it's not that there's no talking your way out of this one now, Thorin. So good luck. So the yells, there's all this commotion kind of breaks out. Let's see, where is it? There is a where does Gandalf show up here?
When the lights go out,
just
right?
just in a little bit. Yeah, just at that moment, all the lights in the cavern went out, and the great fire went off. Poof, into a tower of blue glowing smoke.
Yeah, baby.
Right up to the roof that scattered piercing white sparks all among the goblins. The yells and yammering, croaking, gibbering, and jabbering, howls, growls, and curses, shrieking and shrieking that followed were beyond description. Several hundred wild cats and wolves being roasted slowly alive together would not have compared with it. The sparks were burning holes in the goblins, and the smoke that now fell from the roof made the air too thick for even their eyes to see through. Soon they were falling over one another and rolling in heaps on the floor, biting and kicking and fighting as if they had all gone mad. Suddenly, a sword flashed in its own light. Bilbo saw it go right through the great goblin as he stood dumbfounded in the middle of his rage. He fell dead, and the goblin soldiers fled before the sword shrieking into the darkness. The sword went back into its sheath. "Follow me quick," said a voice, fierce and quiet, and before Bilbo understood what had happened, he was trotting along again, as fast as he could trot at the end of a line, down more dark passages, with the yells of the goblin hall growing fainter behind him. A pale light was leading them on. "Quicker, quicker," said the voice. "The torches will soon be relit." "Half a minute," said Dory, who was at the back next to Bilbo, and a decent fellow. He made the hobbit scramble on his shoulders as best he could with his tied hands, and then off they all went at a run, with a clink clink of the chains and many a stumble, since they had no hands to steady themselves with. Not for a long while did they stop, and by that time they must have been right down in the very mountain's heart. Then Gandalf lit up his wand. Of course it was Gandalf, but just then they were too busy to ask how he got there. He took out his sword again, and again it flashed in the dark by itself. It burned with a rage that made it gleam if goblins were about. Now it was bright as blue flame, for delight in the killing of the great lord of the cave. It made no trouble whatever of cutting through the goblin chains and setting the prisoners free as quickly as possible. The sword's name was Glamdring the Foehammer, if you remember. The goblins just called it Beater and hated it worse then biter if possible. Orcus too had been saved, for Gandalf had brought it along as well, snatching it from one of the terrified guards. Gandalf thought of most things, and though he could not do everything, he could do a great deal for his friends in a tight corner.
Darn right he could. Darn right.
Yeah.
Darn right.
A wizard shows up precisely when he means.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Yes, he does. And it's so different, right? It's different because that moment where Orcrist is the blade that is sort of it sets the Goblin King or the Great Goblin off, and really the reaction that we get in the movie that Matt loves so much is Foehammer.
Foehammer. It's great in the Peter Jackson movie, but I actually think it's even better in the animated movie for anyone who has seen that.
My God.
It is great in there. Yeah.
What did you say earlier? What the dwarves say about of Gandalf? You said
in the animated version when they're dealing with the trolls, right? And they're like, in the book, they just say, where's Gandalf? But in the animated movie, they say, where the deuce is Gandalf? It's like so ridiculous.
Oh gosh, that cracks me up. Yeah. So, where the deuce is Gandalf? Oh, that sounds like a shirt. Or so we gotta tie that in somehow to something. But
right.
So the sword, Glamdring and known as Foehammer. Gandalf knows its significance and knows what it's going to do. And as Lane said earlier, we learned in the Lord of the Rings, whenever you took out one of the orc captains or a great orc, the others seemed to kind of flee for a second. They seemed to scatter for a bit, and that definitely gives these guys a chance to kind of run, to move on, to pick up some different things, to do a quick count, right? Wait. They're counting to make sure everyone's there.
It's a big number
14.
to keep hold of.
Yeah.
I also love, too, that when he's talking about Glamdring, having pierced the Great Goblin, how it takes delight in that, right? That that the sword itself is personified and almost kind of remembers deeds it's done in the past. And that's just like such an elven thing, right? That even these swords would have a life and a memory and could have these, it's a figure of speech too, obviously, but it also, you almost kind of think, like Elven, if any weaponry in Middle Earth could have emotions, it would be those crafted by the elves, right? Who pour everything into their creation, who they're higher beings, they're more connected with and have a knowledge of how this world used to be. I just love that. It's taking joy in slicing these goblins, doing what it was created to do, man. What it's named for.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's something as and I talk about a lot in terms of like just what makes great stories, and it just always seems to be our characters getting magic weapons, and that's we go from there. I mean, Star Wars starts with Luke Skywalker being gifted a lightsaber. This like ancient, powerful, weapon. I mean, King Arthur. I mean, everything. The Legend of Zelda. I mean, it all they're all these stories in which it all starts and when somebody gets like a magic sword. And but when Bilbo gets Sting, and then even it's like, oh well, you just get this little thing, but it's a big deal. It's important. It's an important thing, and then it's carried on to Frodo, and it's great.
Yeah, it really is. And actually, the rest of the chapter is simply that they have biter and beater, and anytime that they flash or brandish this sword, it seems to scare away the orcs to some degree. Now they start to get slowly used to it, and the rest of it really is that the dwarves are, as it says, rolling. It actually says rolling along, and I think it's kind of hilarious that they took that way too far and the Hobbit films. I mean, I'm dead serious, like right, they're rolling along, and Bomber ends up straight up just, I mean, it's
rolling.
Rolling.
It was great. It was great. I loved it.
It's kind of unreal. So to get out of all of this, they're moving around corners. The goblins know their way around a little bit better. there's a bunch of questioning as to why did we ever bring this, Hobbit along?
Why did I ever leave my Hobbit hole?
Yeah, why did he leave it? But then Bomber's even saying, why did we bring him?
Yep.
And so on. So they're drawing their sword, and as I said, they show the sword, and the goblins will cry out, Goblin Cleaver, Foehammer, right, and so on, and then they're kind of running away. So it kind of clears the path for them a little bit. And really, towards the end, is where we see this separation of Bilbo, and he's separated from this group. And so quite suddenly, Dory, now at the back again carrying Bilbo, was grabbed from behind in the dark. He shouted and fell, and the Hobbit rolled off his shoulders into the blackness, bumped his head on a hard rock, and remembered nothing more.
I also this is something that remember nothing more is something we see again happens to Bilbo later on in another portion of the story. I also love too that it was Dory who we almost get this implication that like if Dory wouldn't have said half a minute and put him on his shoulders, pulled a LeBron James in the first place, that Bilbo would have been left behind, and who knows what would have happened to him. Yeah. And because he did that, does he get knocked off eventually? Yes, but does it happen in a specific point that's going to advance the story in ultimately the story we know? And yes, it's crazy. It's the whole fate element coming back in, and what's destiny, what's decision, is it both? Right. It's great.
Yeah, no,
it's great.
It's good. It's good.
I mean, can we just talk real quick about the clutchness of Gandalf?
Yeah, always. We always can.
I mean, who is more clutch, Michael Jordan or Gandalf? Okay, I mean, because for me, look, this clutchness literally gets Bilbo his one ring. I mean, Bilbo gets a ring.
Right. He gets a ring out of it.
So, you know what I mean? It's like
that's true.
He gets the one ring, right?
He gets the one ring. I mean, literally, it's Gandalf, man. Every time, it's like fourth quarter, game's on the line. I'm going to Gandalf every time.
Right.
So.
Every time.
That's hilarious.
He's got magic balls.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to say other than that. Go ahead, edit it out.
No, he's good. That's awesome. That
was great. And Matt, that was excellent reading.
Yeah,
I was sucked in. I felt like a little Hobbit child listening to Bilbo himself recount a tale. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. All right, we have so again, let us know what you think about that chapter. That is a beautiful one. It wasn't. I don't know why I was thinking it was so long, but I love that the conversation that again, it just goes to prove that a chapter's length cannot be judged. A chapter's quality cannot be judged by its length.
Sure.
That the shortest of chapters sometimes I don't know, like what's the word I'm looking for? Provoke the most fruitful conversations, and you can just have so much fun talking about those. We do have a letter in the Bywater Post. Would you like this? This is I actually have read this one. This is fascinating. It's fascinating to me that someone who is clearly this like all of our uppers, they're so much smarter than I could ever be, and that they listen to us and think that we're interesting still blows my mind. I mean, not you so much, but like it blows my mind. I'm like, wait a minute, this dude is solving the great mysteries of the Greco-Roman history, and he's listening to us going, I hadn't thought of that before. I'm like, I don't think that's true. That's probably not true.
We have so many.
You're just flattering us, maybe.
Yeah. We have so many interesting, just like wonderful, listeners who are so smart and so very, very
creative and
awesome
thoughtful and
good people. Yeah. So, this is Luke Kaiser. Yeah.
The Sherd nerd.
Okay, I like it. Yeah. So here we go. Dear Ezenlane, warning, no apologies shall be included in this email regarding the length of my digression into the historical underpinnings of the Tolkien inspiration.
I mean, we couldn't even read that sentence,
I can't. Well, you're going to find out
beautiful.
here, Luke, that, OS is not the best, Watch out, the old dyslexia might get me.
I'm glad you took it, because I would have fallen 3 words in. I'd have been like, bah, nah, nah.
We ought to have.
I can read it.
We ought to have Matt.
I'll read it. I'll read it. Here we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Here, is that okay?
That's fine.
Yeah, take it on, baby.
Because I see one line here that I have to address, and as will know why when I get to it.
I'm down. Yeah.
No, it's a joke. But anyways, so though you guys have finished the Lord of the Rings series, I'm still in the process of catching up. I've read the series a couple of times back in middle school because of the movies, and again in college. I saw Fellowship in theaters and, like so many, immediately read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings before Two Towers hit theaters. I read The Silmarillion and The Unfinished Tales between watching the extended edition actor commentaries in high school. In college, I was an English major, and my department actually had a Tolkien class.
Sweet.
That sounds pretty
That's awesome.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was also a classics major, meaning I was exposed to a lot of Greco-Roman history as well. In fact, I am currently living in Crete, studying early Bronze Age pottery and listening to my buddies Ez and Lane, which guest appearances from the lovely Goldberry, work their way through the series. Though I'm not reading along, it definitely helps me through my days looking at broken pieces of pottery, and has certainly convinced me to reread it again when I get back home to North Carolina. Okay, that's what we'll come back to here.
Yeah.
Just because we're from Ohio, okay? The birthplace of aviation. North Carolina is like, we're the aviation state. Okay.
Right.
All right. The Wright brothers are from Ohio. Okay. I'll just get
There's no issue to be picked, but Matt's gonna pick.
I know. Now, here comes the reason for my email today. So today I listened to Helm's Deep, one of my favorite chapters in the whole series. Right up there with the what is that? I don't know that word. Sorry.
Bridge of Khazad-dûm. Yeah. Thankfully, I mean, I don't know. I can't read many of these words, but yeah.
I haven't read Lord of the Rings since receiving my archaeology degree, so a moment popped out to me for the first time ever as you guys analyzed the history of the fortification. I'm paraphrasing, but the passage says that men say in far-off days of the glory of Gondor, the Sea Kings built here this vastness with the hands of giants. Comparatively, the Anglo-Saxons found archaeological remains in Britain long after the fall of the Roman Britain Empire. And they also said that giants must have built them. They could comprehend how humans could do it. They couldn't comprehend how humans could do it alone. So why is Tolkien including this history, this in the Helm's Deep, Hornburg? To me, it seems that Tolkien is attempting to show the decline of the Third Age of Middle-earth while also elevating how amazing the Second Age would have been. With this logic, Helm's Deep was not, in fact, built with the help of giants, rather the Numenorian technologies of architecture and weapon and many other such skills have been thoroughly forgotten, even to the point that people in the Third Age can't contemplate that humans could build such incredible things.
That's
the Second Age was the peak of Roman Britain. The Third Age was the Dark Age, a term we no longer use in the field, but you get my meaning. Despite the negativity that this interpretation aims at the Third Age, the result of the series does speak to the heart of courage of peoples of the Third Age and how incredible the achievement of destroying the ring of the Second Age supervillain truly is. Best, Luke Kaiser, the Sherd Nerd.
Luke, I need time to digest this. This is incredible.
First of all, did you do this on purpose?
No, this was supposed to be we were gonna read this last episode.
That's what I thought. And how in the world does that work out that perfectly that we were talking about giants?
Every episode,
I don't get that.
Parallels what we're talking about.
I don't know what's happening. I don't even know.
It's truly magic, my friend.
Moment.
It's truly magic.
It's truly magic.
Luke, that's amazing. First of all, I would love to just be a fly on the wall in the course of one of your days in Crete and just kind of see what you uncover. I'm sure there are probably times where it's very monotonous, but I would be blown away to see that. I've always secretly wanted to be an archaeologist for a day, mostly because I would have a whip and a fedora with me, and people would probably look at me strange. But if you remember Mrs. Berensmeyer from high school, she in the summers she would get
my Latin
grants.
Teacher, man.
Yeah, mine too.
It was great.
She actually had a mannequin with her own Indiana Jones archaeology hat that she would go. She worked on the ruins of Troy. She would go, and in the summertime she would have these grants where she would go do archaeological digs and analysis and all this stuff. And she was legit like a Vertigo Indiana Jones, who worked at Mount Vernon High School. She's amazing. Amazing.
She really was.
That's insane.
I didn't know that you had her too, Matt. She's like one of the most amazing teachers I've ever had. I loved her. So that's incredible, Luke, that you do that. And the parallels that you're drawing here. And jeez, again, like Tolkien works on so many levels. Like he's got the prehistory thing, so the allusions to actual history. He has allusions to other mythological events. He has the language piece. He has his own experiences of modern warfare and the value of a simple life versus relying on too much technology, or the rapid advancement of technology and the misuse of that.
Well, yeah, no, and I
can't
kind
even
of
process, honestly, Luke.
No,
so.
this is actually amazing because
beautiful.
I remember we were talking about
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were talking about Helm's Deep and the creation, like all the ancient fortresses and things like that, and to hear the Sea Kings and the Sea People, right, and that being the Numenorians, this Second Age thing. I guarantee you that Tolkien and I can't guarantee it. Somebody will check me on this.
He wrote a letter you don't know about.
He wrote a letter I don't know about.
He was probably being a smart mouth.
But that if you're studying, I mean, he was into the history of language and had its development.
That was his love.
And basically, understanding that. So you have to understand people and regions, and you would look at structures, I'm sure, even like written language, obviously like written language. And so you look back at some of these ancient stones that were carved and that had, I'm sure he wondered about those things. And he wondered about the progression of technology or the loss of things or whatever. And sounds like I'm about to spin into like a Graham Hancock situation here.
Joe Rogan episode.
I mean,
it's interesting. I mean, it's like.
I mean, you think about like Stonehenge, right? And you look at those and you think it had to have been giants. Had to have been giants.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
And then we always underestimate the past and their tech. My dad has said this for years. He's like, we look at the past as like they couldn't have had the understanding or advancements that we had. And it's only recently that some of these minds, right, who start to question, like, maybe it was a different advancement. Maybe it wasn't cell phones and computers, but maybe they had these knowledges that were lost to us that were just as significant and just as applicable to the things they were doing. And for them to achieve these great feats that last. I mean, they even look at, what is it? Machu Picchu, right? And they talk about how did they get those stones there? How can you not, like, you can't even fit paper in between the joints of those stones. Like they say that lasers couldn't even cut the, make those cuts. Like we couldn't replicate what they did. So yeah, either there were giants or aliens, or they had technology then that has been lost since.
Yeah, let me give you another one, which I think is interesting.
Only if you tap my leg again like that.
I've done it like 15 times this episode.
Just don't go any higher. Don't go any
higher. Also, I think it's like I'm losing my voice because that's probably like the 15th time my voice is like.
You are cracking. I don't know. Is it a special time for you? Or you're going through something?
I'm losing my voice. I don't know what is happening.
It must be a bunch of podcasts you do. I don't know.
So, hey, people said it. Spread too thin.
They're on the internet saying it, man.
Spread too thin. That was the 16th time.
Why does Ezra's voice crack so much?
That is the 16th time I've yeah. No, but
there's too many cracks in this episode. I just
too
gotta
many
say,
cracks.
There's lots of cracks.
Falling through cracks. It's Matt cracked open a beverage.
Matt's trying to crack us on a riddle. Here's what he's getting ready for.
You
finish the thought, though.
Hold on, wait. Look,
I do have a riddle. Yeah.
Hold on. This is gonna be interesting because I think Matt's gonna like this, and you're gonna like this too.
Ready.
Imagine that in those ancient times, you talk about different like advancements in technology. People used to. I'm just gonna say this as if it's fact. It may not be.
Okay, I
like
like that.
People used to walk into stone chambers. Imagine if this room was made out of stone. And it was made in such a way.
It is actually. It's brick.
That when they walked in, it was a healing chamber.
Pyramids.
Because of the frequencies that resonated.
Yeah.
And that you would walk in, you would be healed, and you would walk out.
Yeah.
That to us would be absolutely either magic or that would be, we wouldn't understand that. And I mean, like, seriously, I'm talking about the body actually healing itself. Like that.
I regrew my thumb that way. I've got a pyramid in the back.
I knew you did.
If you think about how much knowledge is actually lost, was lost back in the day, like you think of, like, so look at Egypt, right? All these times where you have, the pharaoh dies, and then all of his servants and stuff like that are then basically you're going in too, right? And so like those are the people who have all of this knowledge of what it is that the pharaoh, who is probably the only person actually achieving anything because everybody else is, you're not really in a position to do so. So that knowledge is lost. And so that's why it takes forever. We the library at Alexandria, right? You know, if Julius Caesar was the one who burned that down, they said if that, you know, they're like scholars. There's scholars that say, hey, if that hadn't burned down, we have flying cars and stuff, you know, by
DeLoreans
now.
that are flying.
And then just look at us today and what it is that how we prioritize technology.
Yeah.
Right. And the way and what it is about technology that is important to us. You know, like think about, you know, if you think about something like, say, you think like in the future, maybe we'll have chips in us that, you know, that do stuff like that. But like right now, we literally are carrying around devices where I can talk to anybody in the world right now with this tiny little thing that
you can look up anything you want to look up. You can
access
research
to any information immediately. And, you know, it's like, what are we mostly doing it with? Well, we're mostly using it to take pictures of ourselves, you know, like doing stupid things. I mean, and so it's just, I think part of it is what are we using it for? Yeah. What is our purpose for? They had steam engines in the Roman Empire, but they didn't think, hey,
they had running water and plumbing and And I want to say, while there were some stocks gained today and some advantages made, there was a lot of technology lost today. Just right here with this Hobbit.
Yes, there was. Yeah,
it happens on this podcast. Every moment in front of our very eyes, guys. Yes, it truly does. So I mean, that's just
On one more serious Tolkien. You were serious. Oh, my bad. Lane was serious.
I didn't think we took things seriously.
Actually,
that's fine.
Legitimately, technology was lost. So you're totally
It was there was levels. Are you going to catch that later?
There's no reason to laugh. There's no reason to laugh. What? As Matt just sips on more.
I need more water.
No, so we're learning more about the Second Age and Numenor, and I didn't realize that Tolkien was, a lot of that is like an Atlantis type of mythology, like kind of exploring that a little bit in his world, that there's this place,
even that map overlay that you found,
which is really, 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 really cool. This is some ancient kind of history, and that Numenor would represent Atlantis. So Luke, this is all really cool because I mean it's like he had kind of that, you know, mind to think back, like mythology was important, understanding language, its development, people, all that kind of stuff, and then you know, trying to explain the world around us a little bit, but then also right. Yeah,
I thought they found it.
And think about when Tolkien is also writing these books too. You know, it's like I just think about like how much of that is influencing what these stories are about. I mean, if he's writing it in 37, then you're talking, you know, we were in a worldwide depression. We had just gone through World War I. We're getting ready to go into World War II, and it's like how much of that influences its way into these books.
It totally does. I know that he writes letters, and people will say that none of that, it's not allegorical, but there's totally stuff in his life and in the world going on that, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, there's stuff that he as a writer, you can't not put your own stuff. Like, you have perspectives, you have experiences that shape you as a person, and I totally agree. There was a lot of that going on. Let's get into riddles in the dark. So last week, Dave Downing, our little precious ginger snap, the holder of the golden potato, kind of left us holding our potatoes in a sense, where he gave us a riddle that we didn't know how to answer because he didn't give us an answer. So Dave, my dumb phone is waiting for a text or a call that I need the answer, man. We're still waiting. So we actually had we put a call out. We lit the beacons and we said, if you have an answer for this riddle, please let us know. I think Ez is even saying he's going to give away some of his toys. What that means, I have no idea. Yep. But he will give you some of his toys.
I don't even know what the right answer is.
So the riddle was a man. Let's have Matt guess too.
Sure.
And so you might have to send him some toys. A man says, if you tell me a lie, I will slay you with a sword. But if you tell me the truth, I will slay you with a spell. What do you say to stay alive? Matt, do you have any like kind of guess, just gut reaction guesses?
Let me just
digest
it. What do you say to stay alive? Mm-hmm. If you tell me a lie, I will slay you with a sword. But if you tell me the truth, I will slay you with a spell. So you need to say something that is not a lie, nor the truth.
Yes.
Ooh, how do you do that?
I mean, I don't know. You could ask a question. You could say something that's a misdirection. You could be a politician because that's all they do.
Come on now.
You could. I mean, it's like I don't know. That's a. Ooh, man, that's good. Yeah. I mean, or you could simply say nothing.
That's what we kind of said.
Yeah.
So here's that. Those are great, dude.
Maybe that's what David Downing is doing, is saying nothing back to us, and that's actually.
Oh my gosh, that little genius! He's probably just flying around in his personal plane right now.
Probably. I mean, if you probably say nothing.
Yeah. I thought maybe you squeak a fart out and see if that scares him off. I guess I don't know. So we asked for answers and we got some. Travis Sigler. All right, Matt, you could actually go drive over and ask him his answer right now.
Well, he moved. I think he moved from his thing. But literally, his is crazy. Is crazy. His store is like next door to me.
You can see Mount Hood, and then you can also see Weird Leather and me. That's just, or you could, yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like next door.
That's wild. He said. So Travis said, "Why don't you tell the man and state that he will kill you with his spell and contradict him?" Okay. Excellent guess.
Okay.
I'm gonna admit I put these answers on here and I read them all. I still don't understand them. I would be dead. Well, maybe I'd be so stupefied I wouldn't say anything, and then he would just get bored and leave me. Micah Todd has a guess. Micah says, "At first I thought it might be as simple as saying you will kill me, or you will not kill me, but that still results in death. So I figured it must be more than that. My final conclusion is that to stay alive, you need to say you will slay me with your sword. I like the stay silent answer, but I think the man would just follow you around until he answered. Well, Micah, he's got to eat sometime." Great. I like that, though. Max, our good buddy Max Leaning, he has a guess. He says, "Tell the man you will slay me with a sword." And is that exactly what Micah said?
Yeah, you will slay me with your sword.
Yes. Okay. So Max has kind of a similar guess here. This makes it so that if it's the truth, you refer to part 2, which then makes it a lie, so you refer to part 1, and so on and so forth. An endless loop of not fulfilling either part, and so you live. That's the only solution I can come up with to this riddle. I think this makes it make sense.
Wow.
And then the Pickett family emailed us in. I don't even know the Pickett family. These are brand new uppers to me. I have no recollection of them, but this is awesome. So as a family, they pulled this answer, all right? They said, "I will die by a spell."
Wow.
And again, it's one of those moments where this is one of those ones. I mean, other ones I could take guesses at. And this one I don't know if it's because we do these at the end of an episode and I use all my brain power and I'm out empty. Or I think maybe even on a good day, I'd be like,
I think that's a part of it. Yep.
Wow, seriously, bro.
Wow.
Edit that crap out. So we're actually gonna reconvene. We're gonna have a little council and figure out who got closest when we either look up the answer or Dave stops ghosting us. Maybe he's doing what this man does. I don't know. Like you said, providing us the answer by not giving us the answer. So anyway, we'll get back to the winner on that, and Ezra will send you some toys. But Matt, we asked Matt if he wouldn't mind trying to stump us this week with a riddle. He's going to be our Gollum. Right. We're going to be
here. We go. I'm
gonna
post it right here. I literally just found you guys.
Wow.
Right before we started, he said, "Hey, can you come up with a riddle?"
Yes,
and so
sir.
I just typed in riddles. So it's possible you've been asked this one because it was towards the top of a Google search. But the question is, I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with wind. What am I?
I speak without a mouth.
It's definitely something in nature, I think.
And
inanimate object.
Without ears.
I have no body.
Right, I have no body.
I come alive with the wind.
I come alive with the wind. So when the wind is blowing,
I come alive.
I'm thinking something like leaves.
No, I was thinking that too.
I'm thinking something like
speaking without a mouth. That leaves do make noise in the wind.
Trees.
Do they hear though? I don't know. Do leaves hear?
without
am I?
an ear. Well, that rules out ears of corn, right? Because they have ears for sure.
Without ears.
I have no body, but I come alive with the wind.
I hate these. I just hate,
I
hate riddles.
hate it.
It shows how stupid I really am, and I don't like that.
I
don't like being confronted with the man in the mirror and the fact that he's got nothing inside his head. Like, honestly, it's
I definitely don't like coming, seeing the man in the mirror. Jeez. Every morning I'm like, Jesus. Like,
where'd you come from? You didn't used to look like this? Yeah, I know,
same
man.
thing when I step on the scale. I'm like,
Hey, but bro, you are killing it, man. You are
Hey,
killing
trying,
it.
man.
We've got this.
I-
The big part of our accountability text chain, actually, we haven't even talked about, has been dieting and working out.
Yep.
And I've told you guys, like, this is the longest run since probably college that I have been working out. I want to say it's like almost 3.5, 4 months now of every week. I think I went through a spell of 3 or 4 weeks where it was only 2 days a week, but I haven't missed a week since like June. And it's because every time I go in that gym, I say, fellas, I'm in, I'm grinding, thank you.
Yeah.
And and then we're also doing it with, we're dieting, we're trying to eat more.
intermittent fasting.
Yes,
we're doing
dude.
it, man.
But bro, dude, you're killing it. We're
he's
all
killing
killing
it.
it.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff.
I don't know why I'm thinking I'm thinking cloud, bro. But the
Cloud?
whole no body thing. But you know what? Clouds, there's no body. You can pass your hand. It's water vapor, okay? I speak without a mouth. That doesn't make any sense. I hear without ears. Again, that doesn't apply to a cloud. I have no body, sort of.
Can I give you guys a hint?
Please,
Yes.
please, God.
The hear without ears, I think, is the more important part. I think you could even get rid of the "but I come alive with wind."
That was the part I was fixating on.
I feel like you could get rid of the "I come alive with wind" part, and that would almost make it a little bit easier. The hear without ears. So think of something in nature that hears, but also speaks. So I would almost say it hears first and then speaks.
Is it like a river or something? So okay, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I hate about these riddles. I'm just gonna be honest. This is maybe why I don't like riddles. Is it makes you focus on all the things that it does, like it couldn't be. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I'm instantly thinking of all the things that have ears in it. I'm like owl, bird, person, dog.
It's
like,
it's definitely not an object. It is. I could say something. I could say something would make it way too easy.
Okay, then
Say
yeah.
it.
Well, sure.
Say it. We're about to have you give us the answer anyways.
It has to do with audio. So think about audio in nature that hears and then speaks that sound.
Echo?
Yeah. It's an echo.
What? Wow,
I want this on a highlight reel. I've never gotten a riddle before, Ez.
That was good.
Now,
Yeah.
did Matt have to
did Matt
spoon
give us
feed
2
me?
or 3? Yeah. So
Yes, I did.
Here you
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
Lane. Here's
Yeah,
echo sauce.
so I get it. So I mean, I don't
You
know.
get
I
the
literally
assist.
just typed in riddle. I just typed in riddles, and it was
That was a good
it
one,
the
though.
first
That was
thing
good.
Came up, but it's like I speak without a mouth. Okay, I hear without
Yes, it's
ears.
a sound without.
Yeah, I almost feel like you could get rid of the "I come alive with wind" because you can have an echo that has nothing to do with wind.
Right? Don't echoes kind of die in the wind almost?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get that one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean,
yeah.
you hear an echo
Because if you're in a cave,
Yeah.
if you're in a cave, you're gonna have an echo. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, as I go through and I make my chart of like, the value of podcasters, you just jumped up there, bro. I mean, that was an assist like none other. I jumped down, however.
John Stockton, man.
Oh yeah, I jumped down. I'm all the way down on like maybe Latrell Sprewell, PJ Carlosino era.
My.
So.
Hey, Sprewell wasn't bad.
Well, I'm talking about his lowest point.
Those shoes.
Oh, and one Tai Chi. Oh, those were sick. I had those actually. I had those shoes.
I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Matt, beautiful. Thank you for kind of, helping us along with that one. You've talked about it briefly, but where can people get more Matt Brady, man?
Wow, man. Let's just start the list here. Okay. So
He's like an ant going. He's like Treebeard going through the list.
the old lists.
So You can follow me personally on the internet at Super Gains Bros. It's all one word on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Then I do run several podcasts with Ezra. So Ezra and I run a Game of Thrones podcast called Bend the Knee. We run a Wheel of Time podcast called Heroes of the Horn. We run a Star Wars podcast called Hyperspace Hangout. And we run a just talk show podcast called The Matt and Ez Show. And then I also run a video game podcast called Box Trick. I've had Ez on several episodes, Tiffany from Swish and Flick.
You're going to dedicate an episode to me for my AT&T contribution.
Yeah, I'm going to get
you also have a Twitch as well, right? Which is like people can watch you playing video games. I don't even know what Twitch is. This is new.
Twitch is live streaming. It's hanging out, just playing games. I'm normally playing Star Wars stuff on there. People come in and just talk stuff. But I'm on there kind of doing whatever.
That's cool, man.
So mostly those podcasts I run with Ez. So if you guys are like, wow, I don't like Matt at all, I'm never going to listen to Matt and Ez's podcast, but maybe you do, and you're,
I don't think anyone's going to.
I
don't think anyone's going to say that.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. And Lane just filled in for me for an entire episode of Hyperspace Hangout.
Yes.
I was Ez and Lane talking Star Wars.
I kind of felt like Matt was ducking me. I thought he was going to show up. I thought it was all a hoax, and Matt was going to be like, "I'm here, baby." But
Good.
I need to send him my Dash Rendar. I would love to come on Hyperspace. I don't want to invite myself.
We need to do a three of us
18.
episode of Hyperspace.
Can we do an
18? I'm up to 18 taps in the leg.
Good Lord, you're counting them?
just
That's
got
so
it.
scary that you're
What
counting
the
them, Ezra.
heck?
Like,
Sorry.
I would love, guys. Okay, I'm not gonna write an episode for you, but I would love to come in and actually go through every single occurrence of when hanging out happened in hyperspace. Maybe dedicate it to somebody, maybe not. So anyway, go check out Matt.
Just casually flying through hyperspace.
Yeah. Go check out Matt. See everything he's doing. Listen to all the podcasts. Support him. He's a fantastic human being. It's been an honor having you on the show, Matt. We've loved every second of it. How can we?
Oh man.
Yeah, I do have a little bit in Fortnite farewells. I don't know if Matt's read this or not. I'm gonna get. How can people share the load, my friend?
Well, yeah. So how you
Was
can
that
share?
what you were laughing at?
No, yes,
Okay,
it was.
right,
Totally
right,
what it was like.
Okay.
You can share the load in several ways. We always say, writing a review.
You sounded very intoxicated.
Subscribing on. I almost went for 19. For subscribing on YouTube will be great. We are putting. Remember, all of Dropping Eves is over there. That's the 8th time my voice is cracked. I'm losing my voice. Sorry.
Something else is dropping.
We're not dropping Eves.
Gandalf something.
I'm not dropping. All right. I've lost. Can you tell that it's midnight here and it's like not even 9 o'clock? Where Matt's at
in Portland.
It's like time travel. I mean,
you can totally tell if you subscribe on Patreon. You'll see the difference.
Back to the Future.
You will see. Yeah. Oh, it's weird. That's weird.
One of my favorites.
But I have my blackout curtain, so you can't see. But
Matt's in the future.
Matt.
No, wait, we're in the past.
I'm in the past. You're in the future.
Dang it, I'm so confused.
Aren't time zones?
But
weird?
you know what's really crazy?
It's the present.
Is that what happens? What happens if two people are born at the same time but on opposite sides of the world?
Don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't.
Do they have the same birthday? No.
Don't do
really?
That. Why did you?
They do.
Dang it. Now that's stuck
in my
head, man.
Think about it, Lane.
It's one of those questions you open the podcast with, and you did at the
Think
end. You're not supposed to do. I can't resolve that now.
Oh shoot! Shut her
like
down.
we're talking right now in real time.
Right.
But at different times.
That's crazy.
It's all about perception.
I mean, time is all an illusion too, isn't it? Okay, we got to stop.
We got to stop. That's an appendices. All right, friends, share the load. You can head over to Patreon, YouTube. Send in your Bywater Post, your Tolkien story, all that good stuff. That would be fantastic. Item description. Check out item description.
There's nothing
Instagram.
there yet. It's one of these days.
When
I stop having children, I'm gonna get to item description. But by then I'll probably be so depressed because I'll just be an old guy and my girls will be off living their
These are
lives and
side
forgetting
pro-
about
we're
their
just
father.
Yeah, we're just getting. I bought a nice jacket. I'm gonna buy a nice jersey tonight.
Bro. Yes.
We're gonna do some reviews over there. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So yeah, it's just an Instagram right now, which I can no longer access, which is probably fine.
That's hilarious.
But item description will be I think like a little bit like Matt. Like I have some interests that probably a lot like many people don't get, but I know there's a small audience out there, and I love that. Like I just have a love of details. Like Ez all the time, he'll hear me go on and on about like a button on a jacket, and he's like, wow, dude, I don't get it, but I love how passionate you are. So it's a place where I'll explore all these details. Sometimes it's fashion, sometimes it's products, just things that I love that I feel are really well made. Certain companies, Ezra's jacket, and I saw it for the first time in person today, and I didn't tell you this, but I almost took it off you and put it on myself.
Oh, you can put it on. Yeah,
I'm not gonna do that. I'm not creepy. Yeah. Anyway, Matt, I did want to close with one thing. I think it's very interesting and maybe subconsciously fitting that you picked a chapter where our main character winds up unconscious. And I just want to know, like, have you ever had an experience involving Ez where maybe you kind of like walked in and found evidence of someone who had been there who maybe had slept by the door or and just wondered what went on.
Let me just. I just saw this
PG,
as I was scrolling down.
PG.
And we will keep it PG, and maybe I'll just leave this here with a riddle. So,
a riddle.
Oh, riddle. Oh, geez, here we go.
I'll leave it with kind of a few two stories here,
Wow.
and one of them is a riddle. So yes, I will say that.
Are you nervous?
Ez and I lived
it.
together for a little over a year. And there was one morning where I came into the condo, and there was a pillow by the door. I asked no questions. It was just there. But on bend the knee, I know Ez as Sir Ezra the Watchful.
Yeah.
Healer of hearts, bandit of time, hero of Shreve. And we have never explained what hero of Shreve means, but we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
A mystery.
What
happened in Shreve?
Wow.
And all I know is that from time to time, bears wander through his DMs. We want to say a fortnight farewells, formerly weekly well wishes. I haven't said that for a while, and we want to raise a glass to our good friend Matt, and we want to thank you. Uppers, we love you. You're amazing. Like, would we be doing this if none of you were here? Yeah, we would. But do you make it a beautiful experience that becomes so much more than just a podcast? Yes, you do. So we want to thank you for going over and under a lot of stuff with us, only to wind up totally unconscious. I'll tell you, I'd love to be unconscious right now. I think I'm halfway there, if not 3/4 of the way. Next time, we'll be telling riddles in the dark. We will also have another guest joining us next week. We're going to leave you in the dark as to who that is. He knows. And it's actually the first episode we're going to be doing completely in the dark. We're going to turn the lights off. Whatever happens.
Right.
And there'll be no doc. And we won't even read the text. So it'll be probably our most unique episode to current whatever time it is here.
Right.
Not in Portland, but here in, I don't know.
Here
Take
in
it
Amanda.
over. Take it over.
All right. Just so we get to an even number.
Are you going
here,
to touch me again?
1920.
Jeez.
All right. There we go.
You were at an even number before. It was 18.
Oh, shoot. You're right.
Going to a benchmark number. Okay, I get you.
All right, friends. Well, yeah, thanks again. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a Shadowfax.
We'll see you in a fortnight. And remember, you want to say this part, Matt?
Oh gosh, where's that at?
This is great. But laid pull on the old. It's at the bottom of the dock there.
You got it, baby.
Oh, we'll see you in a fortnight, and remember, Bilbo knows.